He's fought in how many hells? He's never fought us. Not us united.
By retrieving this.
I already got one of those.
Not like this one.
She's a very good secretary.
Hey, where's yours?
I was just trying to get you there. No hard feelings, right? We good.
I love it. I love bringing people together. How are we?
It's all about
Family!
Yes, all about family on this channel. We have a super fun stream for you all tonight. I'm, of course, your host, Mega Mike the Movie Man. We have an amazing panel I'm going to bring out here in a minute. But just a quick couple reminders here. If you love superhero movies, just like us on this panel, go ahead and Shazam that like and subscribe. Bring justice to the channel by keeping this league united with super chats. And if you have ideas for streams, don't keep them trapped in the Phantom Zone. Escape with some mega memberships and choose some future live stream topics. So thank you all out there. I appreciate you all. And then, of course, just to give you a rundown of how the stream's going to look before I bring out the other panel members, we're going to go through all the DCEU proper films, all 16. We're not going to cover other DC films, none of the animated titles, none of, Joker or the Batman, just DCEU proper. We're going to give our thoughts. We're going to have a discussion on each of those films. Then we're going to go over our individual rankings. And then we're going to go over the group score. So by the end of tonight, you will know the best of the best DCEU movie. So you got to stick around till the very end out there, everybody. So let's go ahead and not waste any time. Let's bring out this amazing Justice League right here, as you will. How are you guys all feeling tonight?
Feeling good.
Well. Doing real good.
Oh yeah.
All right, so let's just dive into this. We got to talk Man of Steel. That started it all, 2013. And I've seen the ranking list, so I know this was pretty high on a lot of people's list here. And I will just start off with saying I love this one. I love the opening. I love how it's, kind of large scope with the sci-fi action epicness. That to me really drew me into the movie. How'd you guys feel about that? Because that was way different than any other Superman movie I've ever seen. Like, no movie really focused on it that much in the beginning. How'd you guys feel about that?
I like that. I like how we open up as well with him on an oil freighter.
Yep.
Where Clark's on an oil freighter.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because he could be his strongest there. As Clark, he can show off his powers without actually revealing who he is there, because it's like those are usually the strongest of the strong men and women there, usually working on those things. And that's what I liked. They didn't really dive into the classic that we all know, because Superman's one of those characters that you don't need to tell the origin story every single movie. You can highlight on a few parts, and they did that. And so him starting off there was actually, in my way, perfect way of introducing him as an adult.
Yeah, and it shows that he just gets kind of, a regular type of job, right? He's fitting in with humanity. So I thought they showed that off really well throughout the movie. He's very human-like. Yes, he's Kryptonian, but he's fitting in with the humans. How about Del? What were you thinking of kind of just the opening, how they got things going?
Well, first, I really like what they did with Krypton. I thought that was much better than we had gotten in movies past.
So good.
And then to go with what Ben was saying, they when they dived into Clark, it was certainly the Batman Begins version of Man of Steel. This is, usually we get him as a baby and then suddenly he's a grown-up. Well, we got all that in between without the whole Smallville deal, but they went more into the psychological aspects of the character, him dealing with being so different. So I did really like that.
And how about you, Zach?
I absolutely loved it because Superman's my favorite DC hero. And I love the fact that we got comic booky version of Krypton that we don't get to see in animated or live action. And then they kind of combined it with some really cool sci-fi-ness to it to ground it in a way where if you don't read comic books, you can understand it. And it was just badass just in general. Like seeing his father that way. Usually he's portrayed as this peaceful man that's kind of just a glowy figure that doesn't really get to do action. To see him alive and fighting for himself and then adding the context of the codex and things like that, which is something that was fresh. So not only did they do all the things from the comics and the movies, but they added something that we don't really get that much. So it made it like, okay, this movie needed to be made because it's adding something fresh to Superman right in that first 10 minutes.
Yeah, good points right there because you're right. They did a great explanation of setting up the story, giving us all the details, background we needed, but still made it very entertaining. So it got you excited to watch the rest of the movie. So I absolutely love that too. And then just kind of going through, his childhood life, right? They would do flashbacks and you would get even more of his story and they would show him in the present. So I enjoy that too for the most part. I gotta ask you guys one scene though, because this is one I always scratch my head on. I'm like, did they do that the best? The Jonathan Kent scene. All right. We all know the scene. Spoilers, everybody out there. You guys know the scene there. I'm like, I felt that was so uncharacteristic that Superman would not save his dad. Even though I get the point. I get Jonathan Kent and I want him revealed to the world. I don't buy it though. I felt like he would have saved them. Just how they were showing off the character at first. Well, how do you guys? I know Ben, you were shaking your head at me. No way. What do you think?
Well, it's kind of like the whole when they killed off Jonathan Kent in the Christopher Reeve movie in the first one. He was too late. He's racing his father from the barn to the house. He could have used his superpowers to stop him. A little like it'd be like, well, he's older. I shouldn't be doing this. Like that would think, but his dad dies. Jonathan's thinking to himself, yes, my son can do these great things, but the world's not ready to see him yet. I don't want him doing this. And to me, Kevin Costner and Diane Lane together as Jonathan and Martha Kent was the perfect casting as well too. So.
Oh yeah, no doubt. The casting was great. I don't know. It was like, okay, you're really gonna go, Jonathan, and get the dog. Like, okay, I guess the dog's very important. And then I don't know.
Mike, I'm with you, Mike. Actually, I didn't like that one bit. I get what they were going for, but it didn't work. It just didn't work. Not for me anyway. One, let's say he goes over there. Clark could have went and got him and been back before anybody known. He wouldn't have couldn't have revealed
even
anything.
see it. Would have been a blink, right?
Right. And then on top of that, they just made the whole advice, even when you can help, don't do anything. Just stay. Even when you can do, don't do it. And Ben brought up the Christopher Reeve version. Well, that version he died from natural causes, and it made it the message clearer that there are some times when you can't help. This was a situation where he could help, and basically made him not and sacrificed himself. Which for me again, that whole lesson just got lost in the event.
But couldn't we also say that the lesson there was you don't have to use your powers to try and rescue somebody? That stuff happens for a reason.
I don't know.
It's a big lesson that Superman learns as an adult. And it's something that he has to talk to Lois Lane about. She said, you could just save everyone all the time. I think there was a point in the comics or animated stuff where she gets the powers and she's like 24/7 just saving people. But he's like, if you do, I'm not only am I making humans depend on me, now I become this god. If I mess up or if I'm not there, they're going to turn on me. And then also at the same time, I can't live my life. I'm still human. I can't save people 24/7. I think that was the direction that they were going in. Yeah. I understand people love the Christopher Reeve version and the Smallville version where, his father dies of natural causes. He can't do it. But I think that the point of the movie, when that setup happens, it sets up what happens at the end of the Man of Steel and then Batman vs. Superman, in terms of like the consequences of him using his powers and how the world's not ready for him. Because he could have zoomed over there and grabbed his father and brought him back. But people would have been like, how did he get back over here? We saw him wobbling over there. So, and they're already suspicious of Clark from things that we've seen earlier in the movie, him saving the bus and him doing heat vision, crushing stuff. Like people are already suspicious of and kind of knew this little boy has something going on.
It was probably going. They could have dived into it a little bit more. Too, it could have been the whole fact of why Jonathan, even in Smallville, was skeptical of Clark being friends with certain people or using his powers. Because here, if something happens to me, they're coming after this farm. They're going to dig through this farm, dive through it, find your ship, and they're going to do experiments on you, my son. I don't want that as your father.
The one criticism having this scene is the fact that Henry Cavill was the one. They Henry Cavill looked too old to play what I
Mhm.
think he was supposed to be a teenager, and they tried their best to make Henry Cavill look like a
Yeah.
teenager. I think he was like 30 years old at the time, or maybe 28.
It
They
never
should have
worked, right?
had maybe another. I know they had the kid actor, and then it was Henry
Yeah.
Cavill. They should have had a teenager
Yeah.
that looked like Henry Cavill to play that scene, and I think it would have made more sense because you're like, why is this grown man not? It felt like, why is this grown man not just doing this when it's actually supposed to be a teenager not
Yes.
doing it and listening to his father? Where I could understand that more. Like in the
And I
context
think
of the
that's
story,
where
I get it, but visually, no.
And I think that's where the criticism comes with like what Mike and Dale are saying. So they didn't understand because he looks like an adult in that scene, where he's not a teenager anymore. He looks like an adult. So if they did it like you said, Zach, where they actually got like a teenager to play him and he's on that cusp of 17, 18 years old, ready to make his first major adult decision, and his father tells him no, I think that might have had more of an impact. So I understand.
fair enough.
I understand where everyone's coming from. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
so let's get into some more meat and potatoes here, so we don't just stick on the same scene. Let's talk the
Yeah.
villains here. Nil before Zod, right? I thought Michael Shannon did a great job as Zod in this movie. I loved how they opened with him. He was so menacing, but he was a villain you could also relate to, right? Because they gave his perspective. He just wants to save his own people. That's what he wants to do, right? Just as, Clark Kent wants to save humans and work with everybody, but Zod, he wants Kryptonians to survive. So I love that contrast there. That was awesome. And so I thought it was a great villain. Did anything stick out to you guys about, Zod and the Kryptonians and all the villains? Do you guys think they nailed the villain job right there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, I don't no qualms about that one.
No.
I think Michael
And
Shannon
for all
gave
the
top
reasons that
5
you
best
said, I mean,
performance in a comic book movie.
I don't know if it's best forms in a comic book movie, but he was really good though. I always say he was much better than Terrence Stamp, even though a lot of people don't like that. He was much better than Terrence Stamp as Zod.
Yeah.
Terrence Stamp had a layer of cheese on him, but Michael Shannon
Movie of
did.
the time.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
definitely.
It's like how you get so many iterations of the Joker, but yet each one's different because of the comic books of that time.
Right.
Yeah, like when Jack Nicholson played the Joker, it was the gangster version. It's kind of like this was odd. Ever since the Terrence Stamp version, they gave so much backstory of Zod on Krypton in the comic books. So they're like, now we have a more fleshed out character of who Zod is in the comic books. So let's use that.
Yeah.
But I think I would agree with you, Zach. Top 5 DCEU villain, maybe? I don't know. I would argue with that one.
I think he's the best
so good.
DCU villain.
And maybe,
I'm
there's a
even
point
even
to
close.
argue as number 1 for
Yeah.
DCEU.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah,
I don't know who else you would put him up against.
He's
I
so
mean,
good.
to be honest.
All right, so let's get into then, I guess, the most controversial part, right? The ending stuff. Because everybody always complains about this, and I always have to defend it. They're always complaining, all the destruction, right? There's all these buildings causing all this danger and all this stuff. And I'm like, come on. He was Superman for one day. There's going to be some hurdles there. There's going to be some obstacles. They never give any grief to Batman when he was like Batman for 2 years and still messing up, right? But they give it the Superman, even though he was Superman for a day, right? Just learning how to fly, all this stuff. So I never got that. I never got the criticism with the destruction. You got Kryptonians throwing down. There's going to be destruction no matter what. It's just going to happen. And then the criticism, right, of offing Zod. I never saw the criticism with that either. In that moment, what other choice does he have? He's not going to let all that, family, because Zod said he's not going to stop, right? He's going to kill as many humans as he can. At that point, I mean, he had to do what he had to do. And you saw that it did tear him up. He, had that scream after that. You saw the emotion. You saw that power there. So I liked that. I liked all that. Did you guys have any issues with that? Did you like how the ending went?
Is that a no?
For those people that argue that Superman is too much of a moral Boy Scout, when it comes to something like that, he would throw down. He would kill Zod. And see, that's the thing. You kill Zod, all the other Kryptonians that are still around would have to. Oh, look, Cal is integrated in humanity. Maybe we can too, and help better this planet. Maybe that they could see that hope, that S stood for hope, and everything
Or
like that.
maybe they'll just back the hell up. Maybe that might be.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think where the criticism comes in was because of the whole fact of not necessarily it's Superman for one day, and not necessarily of superpowered beings destroying an entire city. I think it's more so that they showed all the people running around and people getting actually killed and crushed during this battle. I think that's more so the criticism that people have about that scene than the actual scene itself.
That's fair, and I think. Oh, okay. But I think going back to something you said before about when we talked about the Jonathan Kent scene, though visually there's a little bit of an issue in that final moment when he kills Zod, or right before he kills Zod. There's a woman and a child just kind of standing there, and it seems like they're just standing there, not trying to help. So it looks off. Everything looks a little bit off. But I agree that he really doesn't have a choice in that moment. He's got to kill Zod. So I don't have a problem with the scene. I just thought they could have shot that last bit just a little bit better.
What are you thinking, Zach?
I've argued this movie. I always argue about the DCEU all the time. I defend so many of the movies, and we're going to talk about that as we go. I don't understand if people watch the movie when they argue this part. One, most of the destruction happened before Superman even got to Metropolis. The terraforming machine destroyed most of Metropolis. A lot of those people that died way before Superman started fighting Zod. If you remember when they finally destroyed the world engine or whatever it's called, that the Metropolis was already messed up. When he started fighting Zod, in the background you could see it looks like trash. It looks like it's messed up. So it's not Superman's fault. He was on the other side of the planet saving a whole different country. And he fights Zod. Yes, they destroy more buildings, but like you said, this is his first day in the job. He's never fought someone at the same strength level he is. And Zod is a more skilled fighter than he is. Superman doesn't know how to fight. He's just swinging his arms. Zod is doing martial arts. We saw that scene, right? And Superman's still trying to hold his own because he's had his powers longer. I think that people were so stuck on the Boy Scout version of Superman, the Christopher Reeves, the animated version of Superman. They couldn't separate the fact that this Superman was a little different from what we got, because people complain all the time. Oh, he's not interesting because he doesn't have any problems or any moral dilemmas. And then we finally got a Superman that has a moral dilemma and has issues throughout the whole movie. And they're like, no, this is not what I want. I want the perfect man. It's just like, you can't win. So when I watch this movie, I'm just like, this is just the start. This is why it's called Man of Steel. This is not Superman yet. He doesn't have everything figured out. And this in comparison with Matt Reeves, the Batman made mistakes in the Batman. And it wasn't until the end of the movie where he realized, I need to be the Batman. I don't need to be Vengeance. And it's very, very similar in there, but that movie got praise. And then this movie gets shitted on all the time for some reason.
Yeah,
it's weird.
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to what you were saying about people wanting that Boy Scout image. And for a lot of people, they never got a slow walk to a darker Superman. It was just Christopher Reeves, Henry Cavill, with nothing in between. Whereas with Batman, I mean, you had the years with Adam West, but then it got a little bit darker with Tim Burton. Then it was a little bit darker with Christopher Nolan. And then we get the Matt Reeves version. So we're kind of used to seeing Batman be a dark character and the tone being heavier and darker. With Superman, people weren't ready for it. It was like, we go into a Superman movie, we want something happy-go-lucky, and we got this kind of heavy-feeling superhero movie. Now, I'm with you guys, it's fine, but I'm just some of the things that I've observed.
Yeah.
In my opinion, Man of Steel was more based for the comic book fan than it was the general audience. It's the general audience that wants the Boy Scout, whereas the Man of Steel was more so based for the comic book fan. Because at that time, that's what Marvel was doing. They were doing the comic book fan. Their first movies of each of their franchises were basically, here's the comic book audience, here you go. That's what they were doing in Man of Steel, was like, here's your comic book fan, you're our audience, here you guys go. Here's the Superman you guys love right now in the comic books, here you go.
The only difference with that is with DC, Superman was such a big character before that that the comic book fans make up a small portion of the audience.
Exactly.
So that
Yeah.
those negative Nancy's are gonna, they have more vocal power.
All right. Well, speaking of negative Nancy's, let's keep it moving along with Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice. I'm sure a lot of negative.
That's an amazing
on this
transition. You
one
should do this
here.
That
professionally.
was nice.
Well, and actually, I was kind of surprised when I saw people's rankings. I think you guys were higher on this one than me. This one was just such a big disappointment to me, anyway. So let me rant just a little bit here.
Go ahead.
Okay. Adding so much in here, I think that was the problem. If we stuck with Batman v Superman, we could have had a great movie. But the Dawn of Justice, adding all these other DC characters, we got to get introduced to all of them. We're throwing Wonder Woman in there. We're throwing, we got to see video clips of, Aquaman and Cyborg and Flash, right? To set up all this Justice League stuff. And then, oh my gosh, don't even get me started on Doomsday. What the heck was that? Some big giant gremlin monster. What? It was so unnecessary, made the movie so long. If they just did a Batman v Superman story, we would have had something there. And the fight between Batman and Superman was so short. That's the main title of the movie, right? And how long did the fight last? 5, 10, 15? I don't even know anymore. It was such a blink and it was done. Oh my! And what, Lex Luthor throwing a Jolly Rancher in someone's mouth? I'm like, I'm out. Well, what is this? I can't deal with this anymore. So even though there was potential for greatness here, it was just such a disappointment for me. Now you guys can say good things about it. Who wants to start? Give some positives out there.
Bill?
If you want to start with me, I'm on Mike's side. This movie, for all the reasons that he was saying, it felt like a 2.5 trailer for other DC movies. It was just so much just crammed into this movie. If they stuck with the story, like you said,
Oh no!
I'm even okay with
we
them.
lost him.
I know. I thought, you lost me for a second. But if you stick with the Batman v Superman story, and I'm even okay with you putting in Wonder Woman and introducing her, getting her ready for her next movie. But everything else was just extra. It was all just too much. And then the writing was bad on how they were trying to get from one plot point to another. The main example, of course, being Martha. That would you say that name? That was terrible. That was horrible. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was just garbage. And then I thought Jesse Eisenberg was the worst version of Lex Luthor they could have possibly gotten. So for all those reasons, this movie doesn't work for me. So I'll leave it to you two guys to say something nice about it. I will say one thing nice. I'm sorry. I will say this. The Batfleck warehouse fight scene was awesome.
Oh yes, that best Batman scene we've ever seen, in my opinion. I loved it. Reminded me of the Arkham games. Okay, you guys go positives.
Well, to start off with what Dell was saying about what was it? Oh yeah, Lex. Or no, the Martha thing. You would think that a guy who's done all his research on all these heroes that are showing up would know Superman just appeared out of nowhere from Smallville, Kansas. Who was his mother? Oh, Martha Kent. So that should not have been a shock to him, honestly. Because you see it in his back end. You see all the computer screens. You see him doing his research that way. Which for that scene, if that's how the only way you introduce the Justice League, that's fine. Was like on those screens, oh, here's Aquaman, here's Flash, here's Cyborg. Okay, that's fine. Wonder Woman in that fight with Batman versus Superman, with Batman and Superman, when Doomsday shows up, I think that made sense in some ways. Yes, you would have to get her ready for her own movie to make the alliances known, but here's Batman going up against someone who's more powerful than he is. He knows that this Wonder Woman person has the potential to be able to rival him, so why don't I contact her to battle him, to help me battle him? So it was kind of that whole thing of, hey, I can't do it myself, which I wish they would have expounded on more, because the whole issue of Batman is he might fail, but it's him getting back up and still going after it is what makes him it makes him a great hero. It's not that the fact that he's smarter than anyone. It's not the fact that he has more money. It's the fact that he has that human tendency to not give up, to not fail. And him coming back up even after broken bones, broken bodies, even in the fight against Superman, he realizes, oh, this kryptonite thing looks like it can hurt him. It's hurting this thing. Boom. And he does it that way. It's him trying to figure out right there in the battle, I'm failing. What can I do to stop this? But you're also talking from a guy who's lost his parents in the most tragic way ever. And that he's fighting a guy who he sees destroying an entire city to begin with in the beginning of the film. So that kind of jades him on who Superman truly is. He's not his best friend yet. He's the guy who just destroyed an entire metropolis. And who couldn't care less about these people underneath him. He needs to be stopped. And I just wish we had more of a build to that in this film. Like more of that tension between the two. More than that. And maybe afterwards be like, and that scene with Lois where it's like, he meant so much to so many people. And that's when Bruce could have been like, oh, I realize it now. Like his jadedness of what he witnessed and what he experienced was his driving factor first. It's kind of like what you said, Zach, where he becomes in the Batman from the Vengeance to the Batman. Kind of that click in his head. Oh, if we just team together, we could stop. We could save the world. We can make this entire. What happened to me won't happen to me. What happened to these families in Metropolis cannot happen if we just team together. There should have been that moment that triggered in Batman, but there wasn't. I'm high up on this movie just from shots in the movie when Batman's flying through the air and we get that shot from The Dark Knight Returns with him up in the air and the lightning bolt hits, and then seeing the bat armor against Superman. Yeah, the comic book fan in me was freaking out. I was fanboying right there when I saw that. But like I agree with Mike and Dell, it's something that could have been better.
All right, Zach, how are you
too many
on this one?
Oof. I think I'm super in the minority on this. Obviously, you saw my list. Are we talking about the theatrical cut or the Ultimate Edition?
Both, whatever one
Okay.
you prefer.
Obviously, the Ultimate Edition is the way better movie. It adds way more context to what they were doing to the story. Personally, this is one of my favorite comic book movies of all time. I think it's one of the more sophisticated written comic book movies. I really do disagree on the bad writing aspect in terms of the story. There are some dialogue stuff with Lex Luthor. Let me start with the bad. I think that the Martha scene, the idea was smart. The execution was not. I think that Lois should have been more involved in that scene in terms of like, hey, he said they have my mother, and it should have been Lois going, Martha Kent, and then that should have triggered him. Flashbacks, because we know he's plagued by the flashbacks of his parents dying. That's what drives him, and then it would have connected more. I think that should have gone there, but as is, it is a weird scene. I think with the Ultimate Edition, it adds so much context of this is not about Batman fighting Superman physically, because it is a short fight. He's a Kryptonian. He's a human. It's not going to last 20 minutes. It's the philosophy between the two. Superman being this guy that's trying to uphold justice, Batman also doing it at the same time, but he's doing it in a darker path. You see Clark being a reporter, fighting about all these bad things that Batman is doing, but the whole thing works because Lex is manipulating both. He is Batman stamping people. He's causing people in the jail to kill those people who are being stamped. Superman does not like that. You being judge, jury, and executioner. Batman already has a problem with Superman because of the destruction of Metropolis. He was there. We saw that, which I thought was brilliant. Another great opening to another DC movie. And then he's slowly getting all these messages from Lex, not knowing that. And he's so blinded. He's so xenophobic, which is something from the comics where Batman is xenophobic. He does not like aliens. That he doesn't he doesn't realize Superman may have a Earth mother. He doesn't see him as a human person. He even says it at the end. He said, "You're not a man. You're not a god. You're just a thing." He doesn't see him as a person, which a lot of people who are xenophobic or whatever phobic you are, they do that. And that's a problem that Batman has. So I really enjoyed the philosophy between all three characters. I enjoyed that Lex was the Lex from the beginning of the comics, where he's this sneezily, fast-talking, not cute guy with the red hair, and he talks fast. And it wasn't until someone made a mistake in the comics and made him bald that he turned into the one that we know. I like that Zack Snyder was going to use that and then turn him into the Lex we know, just like with the Superman not being the way Superman usually is, and he was going to become the Superman we know. I think that all that stuff was really cool for me as a comic book fan. Other things like, you know, the Frank Miller lightning bolt shot and seeing Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman together for the first time on screen, and Doomsday being the villain. Yeah, he didn't look as great as he could have in live action, but I didn't think he looked so terrible. Doomsday's not a cute character. He just needs to be an ugly gray thing with spikes, to be honest. And that's what he was. It's not like Doomsday looks cool. The only thing cool about him is that he beats the shit out of Superman. So I really, really love this movie. I watch it probably every other year because I just like the seriousness of it and the philosophy, and like Lex manipulating two of the greatest superheroes of all time to fight each other, and then they come together to like overthrow him and stop him, and then the teases for everything else. They teased a bunch of stuff while also sticking to the story to me. You know, like Lois had something to do. She was important to the plot. The theatrical cut, they take so much stuff out of her plot that you don't realize that. But with the Ultimate Edition, you see that. And I think that the stuff with like Flash, and that was so fast, and it was like a quick scene. It didn't bother me that much. But yeah, I just love the movie.
So Zach, you like the Dawn of Justice Part 2 with it then? Like you like it as a complete package, completely works?
You mean like the Man of Steel?
Like all the Dawn of Justice, adding the Wonder Woman, teasing up the Justice League characters, adding the Doomsday, like you love all that stuff with it.
I like Wonder Woman in this film because it ties into the Wonder Woman movie. Mm-hmm. If you don't have the Wonder Woman movie, then her part in this seems less, because when you watch the movie, then it's like, oh, this is her coming out again after years and years of not being a hero. So retroactively, it makes all that better, which is what you're supposed to do when you're making a franchise. The next thing is supposed to make the next thing better. Like Batman vs Superman made Man of Steel better because there is consequences for what he did in Metropolis. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I like that. I was hyped when they showed the videos for Cyborg, Flash, and Aquaman, because it's like, oh, we're doing it. Like, we're getting the Justice League. You know, I was never sure about Ezra as Flash, but it was like, that's who we picked. So let's go. And Jason Momoa as Aquaman is always awesome. So, and then I didn't know who Ray Fisher was, but I was like, Cyborg looks cool, I guess. So yeah, I had no issues with that, especially if it wasn't like, if it was like a big plot point in the movie where they kept bringing it up, and we got like, he like talked to them, like he's talking to Aquaman and he talked to Cyborg. Okay, I'm like, this is too much. You're taking away too much from the actual plot. But since it was just like he's looking to Wonder Woman because he needs information, and then also he sees these other heroes, then I was like, okay, that's fine.
All right, fair enough. Man, I'm glad you love that one so much. I'm like, oh, I wish I loved it more. I liked it, but I mean,
I'm sorry about that noise that happened. My phone was on mute.
Oh, no worries. You're all good. So let's talk about a movie that definitely knows how to make some noises. Suicide Squad right here, 2016. Now, I guess I'll start with this one because this was a lot higher on my list than everybody else. I have fun with this movie. I can have a good time with this one. No problem. I can rewatch this one all the time. The flaws are obvious. Yes, it does get very generic going into that third act, you know, CGI monster battle. You got the girl dancing like that. I don't know what was going on with that. But I will say I love the cast. The cast was perfection here. Will Smith, Deadshot. I love the story. I love the emotional connection with the daughter. That was great to me. Harley Quinn, Margot Robbie, perfect casting. So I thought all the characters were great here. So there was a lot of potential with this movie, and the soundtrack is fantastic. Yeah, they kind of put all the focus on the soundtrack at the end of the day, you know, when they cut up the movie and edit it together like a music video pretty much, but it's still fun music. No doubt you can listen to that music. So that's why I can have a good time with the movie, even though, yes, there's a lot of issues. So you guys could go next. Whoever wants to jump in on this one.
I feel like these two are about to trash it. Let me just jump in real quick. I don't have to say much. I don't hate this movie. It's just people do. I had fun with it. I bought it, and then I saw the extended edition with the extra scenes. The extra scenes are useless. It just makes the movie feel longer. I actually rather the music video version. But yeah, cast is fun. The action scenes are fun. I actually like Enchantress a lot from a visual standpoint. The scene where she like turned into it the first time, I thought was amazing.
very cool.
Viola Davis is fantastic. It's Amanda Waller. I think honestly, what really messed this movie up for me was why they had to get Amanda Waller. Like, still to this point, I don't get. Like, I was like, she sent her on a mission to save her, but she wasn't in the problem when she sent them on the mission in the first place. So why did she end up in a place where it had to be? That part of the movie kind of just flopped. Like with Suicide Squad, you need a mission they have to do, and it has to make sense why they're being sent out, because these are the only ones that can be sent out. So the mission part failed, and then they threw this big CGI monster in there. But overall, I had a lot of fun because all the characters were fun. Not just Will Smith and Margot Robbie, but just like Captain Boomerang, the guy that I keep forgetting the guy that shoots out the fire. He was really interesting.
El Diablo.
Like I just really like visually, like character wise. Yeah. As silly as that was, but I'm glad they put him in there to show, like, yeah, if they run away, they're dead.
So and you needed someone like that. You had
like that. And he's the guy in the comics. Another thing of like using the comic, to uplift the story. But yeah, this had a lot of potential. This could have been, instead of cutting it up to be a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, it could have been something very different. And it could have been greater. But as is, if someone was like, let's watch Suicide Squad 2016, I'm like, I'm not gonna go, oh hell no. I'm like, okay, let's go watch it. You know, I'll watch it with you. Just because that's the only way I'm gonna watch it. I'm not gonna turn it on myself.
There we go. We got a watch party now on this one, Zach. All right, who wants to tear it apart? Del, I feel like you're ready.
I'm not going to tear it apart. I'm kind of with you guys. I did actually enjoy this one a lot more than other people did, and for a lot of the same reasons. I thought the cast was great, especially Will Smith. I thought Will Smith he held the movie down as far as emotionally, he really kept me in the movie. And then Margot Robbie was just excellent. She's flawless as Harley Quinn every time out. So I really enjoyed her, and I liked the cast just kind of gelling as the movie went along. The issues for me was the execution of Enchantress. Visually, she was fine, but I don't like the way they wound up with the story. And again, the big CGI monster at the end. I didn't like how that wound up. But overall, it's fine. I don't have a big problem with Suicide Squad.
All right, Ben.
The biggest, okay. Goods. I'll go through the goods first. Will Smith, Margot Robbie, Joel Kinnaman as Captain Boomerang. I mean, Killer Croc was to a point. Like, you look at the team based off of the comic books and everything. This is the Suicide Squad. I wish they would have expounded why they're called the Suicide Squad in this movie. They do it in the other one, but they don't do it in this one, really. Where it's like, these are guys and gals whose main mission is to get in, do this job. If they die, who cares? That's why they're the Suicide Squad. It's always a suicide mission. In this movie, the bad that really puts us down there is the Joker. I understand you could have brought him in for the whole Harley Quinn backstory. I understand that. That's perfectly fine. But he didn't have to be the side boss on a side quest in this movie. It's like it's too much of the focus there, but not what their mission is. They're dealing with Harley's past, where that could have easily been like Harley and like Deadshot and maybe one other character doing that. You kind of could have split up the team. One team's going this way, one team's dealing with the Joker. What to me it felt like, is Batman going to drop down in a moment here because you're dealing too much with the Joker in this film? To me, it just felt that way. Whereas I agree with you guys. The Enchantress looked cool, but the whole monster of the week, the CGI monster at the end, just didn't make any sense. And even half those guys there would have even just been killed by Enchantress because none of them are on her power level. They had no one to combat her, per se, in that type of movie. Well, what do you do with someone who has that type of magic? You haven't brought that aspect into this world yet. Where I thought Suicide Squad would have benefited more after a movie like, I don't know, Wonder Woman or Shazam showed up, because then you would have done that element of magic more into the thing. I think that's where this also fails, is because, like I said, you're bringing in an extra thing of magic now that you've never even expounded upon in this universe before. And now you want us to believe, oh, this has always been around, and okay, why hasn't anyone picked up on this? Why? With all the people in the DCU that Batman's keeping tabs on, why wasn't this ever shown? Type of thing. It's like you would think that, like, if Wonder Woman came out before this, it would have made more sense to have Enchantress as a villain. But with their coming out afterwards, it just didn't make sense to me. It just, I didn't mind the whole musical aspect of it. I thought that was kind of cool in regards to it. I'm just not, the Suicide Squad is just that. There are a bunch of throwaway characters or a bunch of villains in the comic books that were not necessarily that popular that they put together on a team and somehow ended up succeeding. But they've always had those guys who always die. There was only main three that should have been survived: Deadshot, Harley, and maybe even Croc and Rick Flag. That should have been the only four that survived the film. But we had a little bit more in there, like we had, and everything, and with the whole Waller thing too. It's like you just kind of bring her in with kind of no backstory. Yes, if you watch the Justice League TV show, you know who Amanda Waller is. If you're a comic book fan, you know who Amanda Waller is. But they could have expounded more upon why she's doing this. And you had a great cameo in the previous film of this of Deathstroke, who I thought would have been a better villain for this film to go against the Suicide Squad. He's a hired gun who set out to he's a bounty hunter pretty much, doing killings and everything. And so Waller's trying to stop him. He would have been a better villain in this movie than what they had in here. That's my 2 cents. I'm done.
All right. No, I love hearing that. But let's go ahead. Let's move on to Wonder Woman now. Came out in 2017. And side note, I totally forgot to grab it. But if somebody does do a high-level super chat, say above $20 or a high-tier membership tonight, audience out there, I do have an extra Blu-ray lying around the house of Wonder Woman. And I think it still has the slipcover, actually. So if you want a Blu-ray of Wonder Woman, definitely consider supporting the channel. Once again, you're going to support the channel on a whole nother level, but you also get a little goodie with that. So definitely consider that. But Wonder Woman, okay, this was an interesting rewatch for me. At first, I was super high on Wonder Woman. I really liked the fish out of water story. Thought the casting was pretty good. I loved the romance that was kind of just forming between, what was his name? Steve Trevor, right? So I thought that was great. I like seeing it in a World War kind of setting. Thought that was interesting, giving it a period piece feel. Something different. We don't always see that in superhero films. So I liked all that. And I liked the kind of ragtag group of friends that got together. That's where kind of the emotion came in. So I liked all that. But for some reason, on this rewatch, I was getting a little bored with it. I don't know what it was. It kind of dropped down a little bit for me. And then that third act, once again, going back, CGI monster, right? It's Ares time. It lost me so much in that third act that I'm like, man, I'm so tired of superhero movies doing we got that the Suicide Squad, right? Giant monsters, CGI battle at the end. So many times we've seen this. So now on the rewatch of it, I'm like, this kind of dropped for me on my list now, unfortunately. But still really enjoyable. Still really liked it. But you guys jump in. How'd you feel about Wonder Woman? I think it was pretty high on most people's list, actually.
Yeah, it's pretty much.
I still think Wonder Woman is still one of my favorite superhero movies ever. I just think that it just combined a lot of different things and it worked really well. Like Little Mermaid, it was World War Wonder Woman or World War II?
Yeah,
World War One. Okay,
one.
Yeah, being a period piece, Little Mermaid, introducing me to Gal Gadot in like a fashion that I'd never seen before. I love Chris Pine, so for him to get like a big major role here and have such a big part. The No Man Land scene is still one of the greatest action moments in a comic book, not even just comic book, just an action movie in general. Just how inspirational and emotional it made me felt. This character that feels invincible, but was still struggling, and then the humans got inspired. Like that's what DC heroes are supposed to do. This was to inspire humans to be greater not just save the world and the humans just say, okay, cool. Like that's like the difference between Marvel and DC. And Superman's supposed to inspire, help humans, but same thing, you know. And I think that was really great to have the humans rally behind her and help. And I like the whole like the first time I watched the movie, I didn't realize he was Ares, and I like that twist because they kept pointing to this guy, and that was kind of a downer on me because it's like he's obvious, he looks like a villain, you know, like he looks evil, he looks like the mustache twirler. So
Like,
for the
he's
guy, yeah, but for the guy who looks goofy to be the god of war, and he picked that version of himself of a human, and he's supposed to be looking like this crazy god of war character. I really like that. I think that they did a great job in like doing that for me for the first time watch, and even after I watch it, knowing that it doesn't, I pick on to see like, did they hint to it at all? And then you kind of see him pushing them to go do this kind of stuff. So I really enjoyed a lot of the aspects of this movie in that matter. I don't have a problem with the third act as much. I do say that like Patty Jenkins, she says that she didn't want to do the third act the way it was done, and you can tell the way it was done. I still think there's some beautiful shots within that action scene, but you can tell that she didn't want to do it. She did the best that she could begrudgingly. And I feel like she was all in, and she really took all of Zack Snyder advice because he had advice on this film because he was supposed to be shepherding everything. I think the third act could have been like an all-timer for a lot of people, but I really like the story. This is one of those where the superhero didn't have the answer. The big fight wasn't really the main part of the film. The main part of the film was the fact that, you know, humans aren't doing this because of like some magical force. It's just how they are. And I really like that aspect of it, the moral conundrum there.
All right.
I,
Ben.
I like the whole setting up in Themyscira with Wonder Woman in this movie. It's like you learn more about her world, which up until this point, the only really live action incarnation we had was Linda Carter, and even then, there was a Crosby one too, that made for TV movie that no one even talks about. But anyways, Dell knows what I'm talking about. It's one of those things that you see her in her element. Here she is. She's a warrior princess. She's the top of kind of like the fish out of water, like Zach was saying, Little Mermaid type of story. She's in a world she knows nothing about. And who does she go to? A ragtag team of people who just are thrown together because of this war. Would they have hung out? Would have Steve Trevor and his guys? Would have Steve Trevor and the Blackhawks actually hung out before this? Probably not. But what you can see that they were inspired by her, and she was inspired by them, and I think that's why this movie is high up for me, because it's an inspiration aspect. Here's a hero who knows what she can do, and these people are no match for her, but she's on this mission to try and find this god of war who's creating mischief. Maybe if we stop him, this war will be done. Kind of a little snippet of what is it? Yeah, Ares is responsible for every war known to man. That's where they were getting at this movie. And so if we stop him, this war will be done. No more casualties. I can see that progressing. I can see why people don't like the third act because of the monster, big bad. But I mean, how else would you fight Ares? Like, it would have to come down to almost a big, huge monster fight. Now, this would have been and you wanted to show her that she's on par with Superman. You don't want to show her that she's weaker than Superman, and that battle actually shows it. Whereas up to that point, she's just dealing with bullets. She's just dealing with swords. She's just dealing with bows and arrows. Really, things that, she's just human. Okay. But then when she gets thrown into the world of Ares and the magical aspect of that, here's someone who can fight her toe to toe, and you're like, okay, so she can hold her own now. Okay. And it was also, I loved it because they did something that Marvel was not willing to do. They were willing to bank on a female superhero before Marvel was. And that's why Wonder Woman 2017 was such a success, in my opinion. It's because it's a character that hasn't been touched in years. and it's one that people can rally behind and understand her plight.
All right, Del, what did you
Del?
think of this one?
Oh, I'm a big fan of this one also. And you guys pretty much went through all the reasons. My one drawback is the same for a lot of people, is that third act. It's the not even the whole third act, but really that the battle itself. You know, it's a big CGI monster, and it's just a light show, and then it's protracted. It takes a really long time, and then they pause and they talk to each other, and then they fight a little bit and they talk some more. That whole thing they could have scrapped. If they had done anything different, this would probably be even higher up for me. As it is high, and just because the rest of the movie is just that good for, like I said, all the reasons you guys have already given.
All right, let's move it along to then the first Justice League, I guess you could say, the theatrical cut. Justice League, however you want to say this one. Now, I think I was the highest on this one out of everybody on the group. Yes, there's plenty of flaws here. Yes, we know the Zack Snyder version that came out later did it better. Totally understandable. But I think with what they had to work with in this one, it being two different directors' visions, you know, mashing things together, the end product actually turned out decent. Not terrible, not the worst thing I've ever seen, not great or amazing, but there's definitely some cool aspects in there. Like, once again, going back to the Themyscira stuff, like that opening I thought was really cool. A lot of great action scenes in there. I will point out one scene that I actually think is better in here that's not in Snyder's version, and that's when they're rescuing, the people that, what's his name, Steppenwolf took, right? And Bruce Wayne, Batman, says to the Flash, like, Flash is like, I don't know what to do. I just, push people over, run away. And he's like, hey, just save one. Just save one and you'll know what to do. That's not in the Snyder cut. I actually really like that scene in this movie. I'm a big Flash fan, though. So I thought that was really cool. But other than that, I mean, the obvious flaws I'm sure everybody's going to mention is, yeah, Cyborg gets shortchanged here. Flash still gets shortchanged here. I mean, there's just so many characters they're introducing to give enough screen time to them in a 2-hour movie. It's going to be tough to do no matter what. You can't do it. And then, of course, adding in the stuff with the CGI mustache, right? That was such a weird opening scene. Like, what? That was so weird. I don't know why that was added in. But, I mean, I guess trying to infuse humor into it, make it more like an Avengers movie, okay. But I don't think it's as terrible as some people say. There's a glimpse of a good movie here. And eventually we get that with the Zack Snyder version, right? But I'll let you guys talk about this one, though.
I think the movie gets so much hate because people were waiting to hate on DC because they were doing so many things that people didn't want to be done, but the movies were doing well. Like Man of Steel made 700 million, Suicide Squad made like 700 million, Batman vs Superman made 800 million, Wonder Woman made so all these movies, even Suicide Squad, which a lot of people hate, made a lot of money and won an Oscar. You know what I'm saying? So like leading up to this, all the movies are being successful, so all the haters just waiting for something to slip up, and Justice League just dropped the ball completely. Like, it was a diet soda version of the Avengers. And you can't do the Avengers movie version of the Justice League because the work that the Marvel did wasn't done for DC. So you have to do something a little different. And cutting out so much really hurt the film. But I'll say that Josh Whedon made the film fun in certain aspects, more fun in aspects than Zack Snyder did. And like you said, the Flash scene with Batman, I really did miss that scene. Him saying just save one. That's really important. And Batman being a mentor to this version of Flash, I know very similar to Iron Man and Spider-Man, but I think would have been a great dynamic to have. And it's something that's been done in the comics. I think that the movie doesn't feel as bloated as the Zack Snyder version does, with certain things that just doesn't need to be in there. And I think that, I don't know, I just think that the movie is a little bit more fun than the Zack Snyder version. But, the CGI mustache, because they couldn't get him to come back for reshoots because he was doing Mission Impossible. Steppenwolf looked horrendous. Worse than Doomsday to me. He looked like he was supposed to be a man, and they just made him gray with armor instead of this otherworldly being. And then his ripping out Darkseid and not replacing it with a plot that made sense, like Steppenwolf just saying "mother" all the time. Who the hell's mother? Who are you talking about?
Martha.
It's just the whole mother problem again. It's just like, bro, we just had this. We saw what happened with Batman vs Superman. We can't keep talking about mothers. So I think that there was this presence missing with him. Like, yeah, Steppenwolf felt like not a main villain. He felt like a grunt you send, and he's supposed to be sent by somebody. And they just had that in the movie. And I think that really hurt the film. If you would have kept Darkseid in this film, no matter how mismatched it is and the mustache, I think fans would have forgave it a little bit more.
It makes more sense to Steppenwolf's. It makes more sense to Steppenwolf's motives with the mother boxes if you kept Darkseid in here. Because why does he want these mother boxes? Unless you know your comic books and it's Darkseid who really wants them, there's no point to have that MacGuffin in the movie. And for me, this one just seemed like, oh, we need to have the Flash, we need to have Cyborg in here, and tying in Cyborg with the mother boxes was a stretch for me. First of all, adding Cyborg into the Justice League is a stretch for me because I've always viewed him as a Teen Titan. Where I understand this was the comic book for this, they were going with what was on the shelves right now that sell comic books too for Justice League, so Cyborg's part of the team. So I'm like you could have easily had a Lantern in here somewhere and just, hey, you could say that the Green Lantern movie existed, but you can get away from that and say, hey, here's a new one. Here you go. It's no longer Ryan Reynolds. It's this guy. And he's now John Stewart, because you have that buildup of the character from people who've watched the animated stuff, who've learned to love John Stewart as a character. You could have brought him in instead of Cyborg. But like we found out later on, there were so many scenes cut. But with what we got, I say the best part is what you said, Zach and Mike. It was that Bruce pushing Barry. He's like, if you could just save one, you don't have to save them all. If you could just save one. And that, to me, like I said in Batman v Superman, that's the humanity side of Batman coming out. Yes, you might fail. You might feel like you're a failure. You just get back up and you just save that one. And then that's what makes all the difference, Barry.
All right, Del.
So, I can understand. Yeah. I'm good.
You finished, Ben?
Go, Del.
Okay. No. It's a Frankenstein of a movie with the two different directors and the two different tones. They kind of go back and forth, and it's hard. It never gets into a good groove. And then where Zack Snyder's going for these, deep introspective looks at these characters through his version of the DCEU, Whedon is kind of going with he's just going with the caricatures. It's like, okay, this character is this, so Flash is going to be funny in every scene. Aquaman is going to be the drunk, the brutish drunk in every scene. And we just do that with all these characters. And, we get things like most of Cyborg stuff is cut out. And Wonder Woman is just kind of standing off to the side a lot of times. It's just, it just never really gets into a flow, and it never works. And then you add in the things about Steppenwolf, how, what he's doing doesn't make sense within the plot of the movie. So if you don't know the comic book, if you don't know the story, then, it makes no sense at all. And then he looks bad on top of that. So it's a movie that just never quite found its footing. Again, I just keep coming back to tone with this movie. Like I said, it's just the way it got all stitched together. It just didn't work out, and they crammed it. I know what it was. I'm coming back to what Zach said. Really, really agree with that sentiment. It's a diet soda version of the Avengers. It was really I had already said that DCEU was basically just reactionary based on whatever Marvel was doing, and was really solidified here. Just whatever was Marvel doing, we're just going to do a different our version of that. And it never worked out good because, like Zach said, the work hadn't been put in. We didn't get all these characters with the solo movies, and and even other movies that they appeared in to build relationships between each other. And then so when by the time we got the Avengers in the MCU, it was okay. Yeah, there's all these characters, but they've had solo movies, so we already know them, so we can get into just them building a team. Whereas here it's just okay, here's all these characters, go. You know them, you remember them from Saturday morning cartoons. That's enough, and it doesn't work.
All right, so to keep it moving along, let's swim over to Aquaman now. Came out 2018. I'm going to keep this short and sweet. I love this movie. To me, it's perfection. Everything works in this movie. You got an awesome set of villains with Orm, Aquaman's brother. You got Black Manta with a really cool suit. I love the laser eyes. Just my favorite Aquaman villain of all time. I thought the Mirror, I can't say her name, Amber Heard character. I thought the relationship worked there. I thought she was really cool in the movie. I thought the water powers, the water bending, that was awesome. Like the scene with the wine bottles, like that was super cool. There's really great action moments in this movie throughout. I love the battle at the end was so epic to me, just to see all those different groups battling against each other. That was so cool. Being in Atlantis, all the water effects. Jason Momoa as Aquaman, such a cool Aquaman. They finally made Aquaman cool. Like that was amazing. Like everybody could look at Jason Momoa. I mean, this movie was just made for everyone, and that's why it made so much money. It's just so easily watchable. It's a fun time. It's entertaining. The story works. I don't have a flaw with this movie. I mean, the octopus banging the drums, I love it. I will take that all day. That's fun for me. This movie is awesome. You guys talk now. What do you think of this one?
I'm a big fan of this one too.
It's great.
Yeah, I thought Manta was really great. You know, he was my favorite part of the movie. I thought the dynamic between the two brothers, between Aquaman and his brother, I thought that worked fine. Mirror was good, and then you got the whole thing with his dad. All of that worked out really well. And even though Aquaman himself, you know, they gave him this overgrown frat boy of a persona, but we got to get underneath that and get to learn him more as a person, and then go on our hero's journey with him. So by the time he finally gets the full suit with the orange and the green, you know, that's a big moment. You know, we're like, oh wow, you know, he finally made it. He did it. He became Aquaman. Now, you know, we get to go see him kick some ass. And it all worked out that way, and there were some great action scenes and a lot of inventiveness with the underwater. You know, you got the creatures playing playing octopus playing the drums and all that kind of stuff. So that was a lot of fun. I really did like Aquaman.
This is a case for two reasons. One, where CGI works very well in the entire course of building a universe, and two, what DC can do if they just have the vision of the director come through their films, because you could tell this is a James Wan movie just by the way it's shot, the way it's cut, but it also, you can tell that it's something different, and DC trying something different proves it. Like Zach said earlier, these first 5-6 films now have all garnered almost $1 billion. Aquaman, one of the ones that did $1 billion. Wonder Woman, the other one, and it's like there's a reason, because it was so completely different that fans are like, oh, okay, this is different. Maybe DC is onto something here. After it was a good reprieve from what we just got in Justice League. It was a good reprieve, and I think this is the win DC needed to step in the right direction. And I love this movie.
How about you, Zach?
I think I double down on everything you guys said. I just want to say, like, I think this was for the DCEU, and the tone from this movie all the way to Aquaman Lost Kingdom. Aquaman showcases all the strengths without the negatives. We have strong villains. Both Black Manta and Orm were both strong. We have strong side characters. Amber Heard as Mera is great. And it's sad that her controversy cut her out of the second one so much, but she was so good. And their relationship, even though it's not fully developed, and like them kissing at the end kind of bothered me a little bit. But they had such good chemistry and attraction to each other. I was like, I'm in, whatever. Like, I just do it. We know where this is going. That's fine. Jason Momoa is fantastic as Aquaman. I don't think he was as good of an actor in this film as he is in other roles he's had. It was a little stiff in places, but he was just so much fun. And you expect Aquaman to be so lame. I think he did such a fantastic job. And then another strength that DC always has over Marvel was the VFX. The VFX in DC movies, for up until a certain point, I guess like Flash, always looked so good with the fantastical stuff. And this was the best looking movie they had. It was bright, it was colorful. They made getting the suit an important moment. The action set piece when he fought Black Manta and his assassins, just like the warehouse scene, just like No Man's Land, just like the end scene in Man of Steel, one of the greatest comic book action scenes of all time. The dynamic camera work, all that stuff. James Wan just killed it. And then nobody brought up the horror part when he had to go to the trench.
The trench, so good.
The trench was so dope. And I was really hoping that we got that, either that trench show or the second movie dwells more into the trench. Because that really didn't, the second movie didn't even really bring those characters back up. But I really enjoyed so many. It felt like a swashbuckling Pirates of the Caribbean, but mixed with DC and the heaviness that they were trying to bring all in one. It's not a perfect movie. Like there's certain like filmmaking aspects that I've talked to, like Kenny Sparks is in the live chat right now. We've had conversations about like the lack of score in certain parts and maybe some editing problems or like some acting issues. But we also had William Dafoe, phenomenal in the film. Like there's so many top tier actors to support these two actors that are not blockbuster actors. Just a great film.
All right, now to go to everybody's favorite holiday movie, Shazam. Right, I count it as a holiday movie. It takes place around the holidays. You got all the family feels. So I absolutely love this movie. Just like Aquaman, very high tier for me. Very family friendly. Thought the cast was great here. Zachary Levi, perfect casting as the Shazam character. I mean, this movie is like big, but with superheroes. And he really has that childlike persona. And he loves being a superhero. That's what I love about Shazam. He's like the one superhero that's like, yeah, I get to have fun and do all this cool superhero stuff. Whereas like everybody like sad like Batman, like, oh, you know, gotta go save people now. Right, all depressed. But Shazam's having a good time. And so this movie is just fun. And all the family, the supporting cast is great as well. You get to see all their connections. That's all the emotion right there. I thought the villain was pretty good too, you know, Dr. Savannah, right? I liked his story, like with the car accident at the beginning. I'm like, ooh, they went a little dark with that right there. I wasn't expecting that. And with the deadly sins and when they go and he visits his father again and it like becomes all horror like, and oh my god, I'm like, wow, this movie it's a family movie, but there's some scenes that really take it to a horrific level, and I love it, kept it interesting. And then the end, the big moment, all the family becomes the Shazamly, right? Get the Shazam powers. That was so cool. One of the best moments in a comic book movie for me. Just such a fun time. I love this movie, but you guys talk about it. Who else loved this one? There we go. Ben, what'd you love about it?
Pretty much the same stuff you did, Mike. It felt like Shazam. I was a little worried how they were going to do the Billy Shazam thing throughout the movie, but it made sense. It was perfect casting on both parts of there. The family was very. I love the fact that he's in a foster home, and that all his Shazam Lee or the Marvel family, whatever you want to call them, is all his brothers and sisters. That's awesome. It just is like he understands what family means now, and with that, and I love like you said, Mike, the horror aspects of it with the Seven Deadlies and how they locked them up and how they were released to begin with and everything like that. I also enjoyed the end credit scene with Mr. Mind.
Yes, the caterpillar.
yeah. The caterpillar who in the comic books, you know, can control people's minds, and so it's like I'm like, oh, they're going to go this route. Okay, this is awesome, and like it was a total fun time to be had at the movies with this one. I thoroughly enjoy it.
All right.
Yeah,
Zach.
I'm okay.
Oh yeah, no,
go ahead, Zach. Sorry.
Well,
I was just gonna say,
I'll be real quick.
Go ahead.
Shazam is really fun. I had a really great time with this film. It's one of my favorite DC movies. I'm sad that it bombed at the box office. I'll say in the moment, I really like the Shazam family getting together and all that. I think retrospectively, I think it might have been a mistake to do it that fast because it kind of made it more Power Rangers like with it all being different colors. But overall, Mark Strong was phenomenal as the villain. Another great performance as a villain, someone that can kind of rival Michael Shannon in the DCEU. I really like the dynamic between Billy Batson and Shazam, and like Billy Batson was a serious, depressed kid. He had to grow up faster than he needed to be, but he had his child in him. And when he turned to Shazam, that was him. I just think that the movie should have expressed that a little bit more. I wished. I love Jack Dylan Grazer. He was really fun and really great as one of the foster kids. And the last thing I say, DC movies always have some dark shit in it. And him meeting his mom and his mom just oh my God. I literally cried because I was just like, what? That's so messed up. But yeah, really great film. Love this movie. That's all I gotta say. Go ahead, Collective.
Yeah, I'm really just like you guys on this one. And speaking about his mom, it's one of those movies that was sneaky dark because you were having so much fun with the rest of the movie while you're watching it, and then when that dark thing just something heavy happens, you're like, oh wow. And then we kind of get back to the fun part, and it feels organic in this movie. It doesn't feel forced like in a lot of movies. It's really a comedy with some dark moments rather than a superhero movie where they just crammed in a bunch of one-liners that don't quite fit. So in this movie, that's one of the things I really like is that the comedy fits. Everything seems to work.
Yeah. It's a kid learning his powers. Yeah. That's why it works so well.
Yeah.
All right, heading over now to Birds of Prey. I'm not starting on this one. I'll rant on it later. You guys love this one, apparently. Someone start with it.
It was fun. It was fun to finally get a Harley Quinn story in the realm of Deadpool. Well, like honestly, if you think of the DC version of Deadpool, it's truly Harley. Like I love it how she sits there and the whole cheese sandwich monologue that she does at the beginning of the movie, and how she's trying to distance herself from Joker. Obviously, that's what this movie is about, distancing her from the Joker. And the way she builds her friendships are not always the best way, but she sees herself in each one of her friends that she does. Huntress, Cassandra Cain, Renee Montoya. She sees herself in each one of them, and she's there they're each missing a piece, and each of the ladies brings a piece to that puzzle of what they're missing in somebody else's world. And that team just, in my opinion, just gels together. I enjoyed the movie, hands down. It was fun. I especially enjoyed Harley going into the whole, what is that, cat? Oh, no, I'm getting that confused with something else. Never mind. I was getting that confused with Suicide Squad because they're both relatively bright, cheery, and comedy-filled. So, but I thoroughly enjoyed this movie.
All right. Who's next?
The whole sandwich thing was just a perfect running joke through the whole movie. I really enjoyed that. That and the was it the coyote that she adopted, sort of.
Hyena, yes.
That was
yes.
It was just it was small touches that kind of gave us some insight into who she is as a person and how her mind kind of works. And then you add in the rest of the stuff that Ben was talking about how she's seeing a little bit of herself in each one of the other characters. And each one of the other characters, they could have spent some more time on the others, but overall, I thought they did a pretty good job with that. And I thought it was really smart to actually not have the Joker in the movie because for the same reason, she's trying to distance herself from him. And like I said before, with Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn is just perfect every time out.
Yeah, I ended up loving this movie. I'm a starch defender of it, as you can say. Margot Robbie gets to flex her Harley muscles and just be the character throughout a whole runtime without having to beholden or play lesser to a bigger star. And she's so good. The cheese sandwich thing, it being like a reference to the East Coast and us love of like sandwiches and stuff like that, it just touched my heart. If you go into and get a chopped cheese or you get a sandwich in New York and you drop it, that's how you're gonna act. It's gonna be dramatic. It's gonna be like you're in a Broadway play. Because how could I? That's the most delicious thing on the planet, right? So that really played well with me. I love Journey Smollett. I love her as an actress for a long time. I really liked her as Black Canary and kind of the start of it. Not a lot of the DCU is like, this is the start of this character. The fully realized character will come later. I like that they brought Renee Montoya, and she was going to probably turn into the Question eventually. And like, I like the starting of it. The character I didn't really like was Cassandra Cain. I didn't like that version of this Batgirl. I think that I don't have a problem with the actress. I just like how they wrote her. And I like Conor McGregor's Black Mass. He was fun. He was funny. I think Black Mass in the comics comes off like a generic mob boss with a cool mask sometimes. And they made him a little bit more sadistic and funny in this film. I wish they didn't kill him because he was so good. And I wanted to see him terrorize other heroes. But comic book movies has that problem, right? I think almost every single villain we've talked about, they've killed. So in Marvel, DC, they both have that issue. The action scenes, once again, we want a DC strong point. We're really creative, really fun. I think that this movie was just really fun for me, and it was the first R-rated DCEU movie. And I think at this point in my journey through comic book films since 2008, I kind of started understanding we're going to get versions of these characters that are not like how I know or love. It just has to have the spirit of it. And that's how, like, at that point, that's what I was watching it with. Because at this point, I was like, that's not my version of Spider-Man I like. That's not my version of this. That's not my version of this. But at this point, I was like, I got to let go of that and kind of just watch it. And hopefully they get the essence right. And that's why I enjoyed Birds of Prey a lot.
All right. I got a rant now. I was holding it in. As Zach, as you were talking, I was even getting more pissed off at the movie because you brought out some concepts I didn't even realize. So we'll get to those. But oh my gosh, this is the only DCEU movie I do not like. It gets worse every time I watch it. Nothing lived up to its potential. Even the hyena. There should have been 2 hyenas, right? All the characters, Black Mass. To me, that was not Black Mass. That did not work as a villain. It didn't work. Like Black Mass, like it should be glued to his face. We shouldn't be seeing human face the whole time. Like it's supposed to be Black Mass. Like it was called Black Mass, but it wasn't Black Mass. Like I don't know what was going on with that. All the characters, Black Canary, Huntress, like they just didn't live up to their potential. Once again, of what I was thinking, and Zach, you mentioned that it's not the characters I knew. But I want it to be the characters I knew from the comics and all the animated stuff. Like I wanted it flushed out, and it was just the beginnings of stuff. And you just said that was supposed to be Batgirl. I didn't even know that. That light bulb just went off in my head. I'm like, Cassandra Cain, that does sound familiar, but it's probably just like a name nod. I'm sure that's like more like a joke than an actual thing. If that was actual, that was supposed to be Batgirl. No, just, oh my gosh. No, I can't do this movie. This movie just failed on every level for me. I did not care about the egg sandwich joke. I was getting annoyed because they kept going back to it. Every character just annoyed me in this movie. I thought it was generic. I didn't think the action scenes were that great. I thought it was pretty generic. And this is an R-rated movie. I did not know that. They wasted the R-ratedness if this is an R-rated movie. They did not live up to that.
If I could jump in for just a second, I did while you guys were mentioning that. Well, I did turn around and look because I forgot it was rated R too. I just pulled it off the shelf. I was like, oh yeah, it is rated R. So yeah, I understand that part.
Oh my gosh, they did not live up to that. Wasted potential even on the rating of this movie. I'm out on this movie. Oh my gosh, I'm done with this one. We're moving on. I don't know if it's going to get much better now with this one, though. Wonder Woman 1984. Woo! Oh, all right, I'll give some positives. I'll try. I got to be a little bit more positive on this stream. Okay. So when I first saw this one, there were some aspects I did like about the movie. I kind of liked the idea of the monkey paw scenario. Pedro Pascal, I thought he's a really good actor. I like that idea of granting wishes, something different for a movie. I like the 1980s aspect, like taking it to the 80s. That's a very cool time. So there are some ingredients in here I did like. That's the only positive for me. I'll let you guys get into the negatives before I get. I'm still recovering from Birds of Prey. You guys go.
Wonder Woman 1984 is a movie. When I first watched it, I really liked it because I just looked at the positives. I really liked the story that Diana was going through. I liked the story of the villain and everything like that. And I really like Pedro Pascal as oh my god, what's the character's
Maxwell
name?
Lord.
Maxwell Lord. I think he did a phenomenal job. One of the best performances in a comic book movie. I know I like to throw that out, but when it's highlighted, I think he did such a great job as that character that I really loved him. Now, like when I rewatched the movie, I realized the Chris Pine stuff, the Steve Rogers stuff is really icky in an unnecessary way. Like I don't know why Patty Jenkins let go of the writers and let go of the people from the first one and decided to take full ownership of this, because Wonder Woman 1 did so well. Just bring back the team and direct the movie the way you want it, because the direction is fine. The way the movie's directed is fine, but the story and the action sequences, like if you look at the action sequences of Wonder Woman in say even Batman versus Superman and the Wonder Woman movie, or even in Justice League, the Joss Whedon version, it's just way less. Like her getting blown back by like wind and like shock. I was like, is she not as strong as she used to be? I'm confused.
Well, she wasn't stronger though because of the wish, right? Because of what was that one person getting her powers now?
But didn't she get it back
Cheetah.
by that point when the wind was blowing?
I don't know. The wishing stuff made no sense to me. That's another thing I gotta mention. The wishing rules made no sense. That irritated me about the movie eventually, because it's like, didn't the cheetah person already got a wish, right, to be more like Wonder Woman, and then she gets a second wish to become an apex predator? Now people get multiple wish. It made no sense. But
no, I think the one wish is what turned her into Cheetah, right?
no, that was her second wish of wanting to be an apex predator, right?
Okay.
So why did she get a second wish and everybody else only got one?
Yeah,
wish?
it's just like I said, the writing for the film is not great. I think the moment where she had to let go Steve Trevor was phenomenal, and I really wish it didn't mess it up by having it in a weird he's taking over somebody's body thing. Like if the wish just brought him back to life and she had to let him die again, that would have been really powerful. I really don't know. That part really messed up the movie, other than the fact that, you know, the VFX sometimes were off. Cheetah was misused. And I really think that they should have had like a god involved in this. Like they mentioned a god, and that's how the wishes came about. But I think each Wonder Woman, we should have a god doing something and Wonder Woman getting closer to Zeus. And that trickster god that had this thing here, he should have been in the finale or something. I don't know. There's just so much this movie had potential with in terms of the story aspects, and like how you feel about Birds of Prey in terms of like lost potential. I feel like that for this movie.
Seriously, I'm gonna keep this short. One, the villain should have been Cersei, because of the whole wishing thing and needing a god in there. Cersei would have made sense because of all the bestial morphs she has. So having someone become a Apex Predator would have made more sense in that route. Two, I think they wasted the potential of the year. I think they should have done it in the 70s and paid homage to the Linda Carter Wonder Woman at the same time, because you already have all that stuff there. You could easily insert Gal Gadot into some of those same situations that Linda Carter was doing in the 70s. And that, I think that would have just made for a better movie than what we got. That's my 2 cents. I'm done.
The year, you know what? On the year, my thing is, I mean, that sounds great. Do it in the 70s, but even in the 80s, it didn't have to be in the 80s either, because they used basically 2 scenes. You got the mall scene early on, and then you got the scene where he goes through the fashions. The rest of the movie, you could have set any year you wanted to. It didn't matter. So they wasted that, and they wasted Cheetah. Her arc was trash. The wishes didn't make sense. Pedro Pascal was great, but his motivations were kind of iffy towards the end. And it's just not a well executed movie at all. Writing was horrible. Yeah, they could have kept this one.
Hey, Bill, I know you're a huge comic book fan, a huge DC comic fan, but Doesn't it seem that Maxwell Lord in here was more so supposed to be Maxie Zeus than Maxwell Lord?
Now, I'm gonna clear up my whole comic book fandom deal. I collected comics as a teenager, but I'm over 50 and I haven't read a comic book in like 30 years, so I couldn't really answer that question.
Okay.
First of all,
Okay.
I did not know you that age. You look 30. So good job.
Well,
Good
thank
genes.
All right. So now we finally get a jump up in quality here. Finally. And you know what? Because I know everybody's going to say positives, and absolutely this movie is way better than the Justice League one. You can see what editing and a full-on director's vision can really do with a movie like this. So yeah, the positives are obvious here, and I know you guys will talk about it. I'll say a little bit of some nitpicks here, a little bit of criticism here. It is still way too long of a movie. We did not need to add in all the extra stuff at the end. We did not need to add in Martian Manhunter, even though that's one of my favorite superhero characters. He was unnecessary. Like, if he's in here, why isn't he already fighting with them? Makes no sense. It was cool seeing him, but still made no sense to the story. So I would have cut the stuff at the end. I would have maybe cut out a little bit of the Flash stuff, like the Iris West stuff and the truck crashing and the dogs. And I'm like, okay, that probably could have been taken out. So if he made this movie like 3 hours 15, I think it could have really sung at that point. I think that would have been a really tight, like really solid, really, really, really good movie. So those are my few criticisms there. But yes, this movie is 10 times better than the Justice League one. I love all these characters getting fleshed out more, but you guys talk more about the positives here.
It to me, I agree with you, Mike, with the timing. I think 4 hours is a little long, but I know Zach knew he wasn't going to get a sequel to his Justice League, so he took his sequel and his original film and kind of mashed them together to form the 4 hour spectacle we got. Well, like, I love being flushed out. I like seeing the nightmare scene come more into fruition and everything there. I like seeing the dark side stuff. It, to me, like I said, it seems like it's part one of the Justice League, part two of the Justice League mashed together to form this 4 hour movie that it was Zach's vision from the get-go. That's all I gotta say about this. Yeah, it's a fun film.
All right, who's next?
I guess I'll go. First off, want to note I'm biased. I'm a huge Zack Snyder fan. He's my favorite director. So my views on this was biased because I had an emotional attachment for what happened with the original Justice League. So I don't have a problem with the length because to me is like, if I'm gonna get to do this, I'm gonna put every freaking scene in this movie, and my fans are gonna appreciate it because I'm making it for them. And for me, who was super invested in Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, a little bit of Wonder Woman, is kind of into the Zack Snyder thing. This fulfilled every single thing I would want. It redeemed my problems. I didn't even bring that up with Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman. I have issues with the way he treated Superman. Like I like the melancholy and showing the more emotional parts, but there should have been parts in Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman where he smiled and that was happy and showed the more positive parts that we usually see. There should have been more time spent on that. But I like that we got that in this movie after he came back to life. Obviously, he was like, oh my God, he's evil. But after he saw Lois, we got to see a more of a Superman that was more positive and closer to the way we want him to be. I love the redemption of Batman going from this ruthless killer that he was becoming to becoming more of the Batman that we know. If the Justice League version felt like not all the characters had to be there, and I feel like in this movie, every single character mattered, especially towards that third act, which I think is one of the greatest third acts in a comic book movie because every single member of the Justice League mattered. If you took one out, something wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have worked. They all need to be there for them to stop Steppenwolf and stop Darkseid from coming. It is long. There are some weird scenes, like I think Kenny Sparks said in the live chat, the women singing to Aquaman. I get what he was trying to do because he's doing the gods among people thing, and that was supposed to tie into Aquaman, but there's a studio issue there because James Wan didn't get to see the movie before he made his movie, so he didn't get to tie that aspect into his story. So where that's another thing where, remember how I talked about how like Wonder Woman's there, but because we got the Wonder Woman in the movie, it made Batman vs Superman scenes more better. The Aquaman movie would have tied more into Zack Snyder's Justice League, and it would have made the singing better, but we didn't get that because of studio interference. I just love this movie. The only team up movie that's better than this to me, in terms of like superhero team up movies, is Endgame, and I can't speak more highly about that. I love Martian the Manhunter. I love the twist of it and him manipulating things and getting Lois there, and I love Cyborg in this movie. He was the heart and soul of the film, and I think Ray Fisher did a phenomenal job as the character.
That's
I can go
right
on.
where, yeah, the Ray Fisher Cyborg. That's really where my praise for this movie starts, because they expanded the character from the Justice League version, and we really got to know that character. We really got to spend time with him and really get attached to that character, and he had actual depth and wasn't just kind of there to be the black character. He was actually there to do things.
Token.
Yeah. And the storytelling for this movie is a lot better, but I do agree with Mike. 4 hours is too long. We needed to cut it back to 3 hours or so, maybe a little bit over 3 hours, because there's a lot of extraneous stuff here. And I get what what you're saying is that if I'm gonna get to make this movie, I might as well throw everything in there. But from a storytelling standpoint, there's a lot here that just could have been chopped off and not changed anything. I mean, especially like the very end. I mean, why do I need a teaser for the Joker? We know that this isn't going to happen. Why do we need to do this? Or any other the teasers and Easter eggs that were kind of put into the movie? We don't really need this. Just tell me the story, and you have a big story to tell, so it's going to be 3 hours anyway. Let's just do that. But otherwise, I really do enjoy this movie. Really high up on this one.
All right, let's head over to The Suicide Squad, right? Same year. I'll let one of you guys start on this one. Who wants to start with this?
I can start with
like
this
I
one.
said with the others.
Oh, go ahead.
Go.
No,
Dan.
I was gonna say, the tone of this movie is set right from the beginning and is carried consistently throughout the beginning, so that no matter how ridiculous things are, it fits within the tone of the movie. And that was a big asset for this film for me. They set our expectations right from jump when all those the first team basically gets killed, and then they go and they do some things. You have this one character who's a shark. You have another character who's a I can't even remember what the other character
Polka
is.
Dot Man and
Not Polka Dot Man, but I'm coming to him. But you get all these crazy characters, and then the way the movie is, it's snarky and it's violent and it's gory, and it's still hilarious all along the way. I just had a blast all the way through it. So by the time I got to the end of it, and there's this big giant starfish on my screen, I didn't mind one bit. I just had a blast with the way all of that was executed. And, again, of course, I'm going to praise Margot Robbie again as Harley Quinn, even though they probably could have had her in the movie or gave her a little more purpose, because they kind of sidelined her for a good chunk of the movie. So I will. That is a bit of a drawback for me. But otherwise, I thought everything worked out perfectly, almost perfectly, not quite perfectly.
All right, Zach, what are you thinking?
I guess I'm not as high on this movie as most people. A lot of people feel like this is their favorite DCEU movie, and I it's not for me. I feel like it's the same movie as the 2016 film, but just by not chopped up and really well made. It's almost the same exact plot, except it's set in a different country, and just has the characters are still great. The characters were great in the other one. This betrayal, there's all this other stuff. So it has a very similar plot to the 2016 film, but just made way better. Like, James Gunn is such a great director, and not everything that he does hits for me in terms of outside the Guardians of the Galaxy. I think that the humor is like a little bit over the top for me, and there's like not until we get into like deep into the third act, we don't really get any emotional core moments, like the twist with Peacemaker. I thought was fantastic, and I didn't really like how they like treated the refugees in the film, in terms of like how they just murdered them and stuff, like the people who were trying to fight and get their country back. I think that was a little tasteless, but the movie is really, 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 really fun. Like, from the get-go is really, really fun. Just laugh out loud. John Cena is a gem in this film. Margot Robbie, like you said, Ratcatcher being a weird character. Once again, James Gunn bringing this obscure character and giving them so much depth that you can care. Like, you know, most people were like, "Oh, somebody that deals with rats." And at this point, everybody's like, "Where's the Ratcatcher show?" Like, people want a Ratcatcher show. You know what I'm saying? I didn't like that Idris Elba was basically Will Smith's character, almost beat for beat. I thought that was really weird, and I didn't like how they treated Amanda Waller. But overall, I really like the movie. I go between like this is a really good to great movie all the time, depending on the day. But yeah, it's a really good movie. It's really fun, and the starfish thing, like we got to see Starro live action and look really good. Like the VFX
Yeah.
was great on his character, so I think that's dope.
I just gotta say this, and but anyways, this is what I was getting at with the other one that I said. It's the roster. This one showed you out of the get-go what the Suicide Squad is. They're people on a mission that if they get killed, who cares? That beach scene. You kill off half the cast already. Boom. You're setting the tone for the movie already. So, Ratcatcher was great. Like, the obscurity, like how James Gunn, like it was said, how certain characters he does greatly out of obscurity. Who would have thought Polka Dot Man would be that interesting of a character? Honestly, and now I mean, Deadshot versus Deadlock, like it's yeah, he's a transformer. His gun's a transformer. That's about the only difference between him and Deadshot. That's the only difference. His gun transforms into different things. That's the only thing. He's there. John Cena. We get the start of the John Cena acting phase in this movie, so that's a plus. That now he can act, especially in comedies. Yeah, Weasel. Is he dead? And then he comes back alive at the end. Ah, it's Weasel. Yeah, that was fun, and yeah, just see like Starro. I wasn't expecting Starro at all. I'm like, okay, what is this thing they're going after? Then all of a sudden, Starro's revealed, and I'm going, oh, okay. How are they going to do this? And just seeing that fight scene and how they're battling Starro was awesome. James Gunn knows how to make a comic book movie look like a comic book movie. If it looks like a page out of the comic book, if that makes sense. Just the way they're fighting him and the arc he has with Starro and Ratcatcher and Polka Dot Man in the foreground and Starro in the background, and how they're doing their different abilities and everything that way in there just made a lot of sense to me, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Mike?
I love this movie. This movie is great to me. This movie definitely earned the R rating. Unlike Birds of Prey, this used it. It was brutal, but it was fun and entertaining at the same time. I thought it was brilliant having those two different Suicide Squad groups at the beginning. That was great. The casting, once again, as you all mentioned, I mean, this is perfection here, right? Finding Peacemaker with the John Cena character is just like a match made in heaven. So everybody did a great job here. I loved how the story was told. I was never bored with this one. Yeah, this movie does not have a flaw to me. Very entertaining from start to finish. So really like this one. All right, talk about a movie with some flaws though. A movie that came out 10 years way too late, Black Adam. Man, this movie took forever. I mean, we heard that The Rock was going to be Black Adam such a long time ago. And so we were just waiting and waiting. And then, okay, we have all this build up and hype. He's saying, oh, where the power is about to change in the DC universe. And then we get this movie. So generic. It's fine. It's fine. It's a superhero movie. But as generic as you can be, if I'm going to pick a superhero movie to rewatch, it's not going to be Black Adam. It doesn't do anything different. Doesn't do anything mind-blowing. I mean, it is what you would expect. It's not terrible, but nothing special to the genre at all. All right. Did any of you guys like Black Adam?
I agree with you, Mike. For me, the best thing was Pierce Brosnan as Dr. Fate. That was the best thing in there. Seeing him, seeing M Smasher, and seeing Hawkman. By far, that was the best part of that movie. And don't even get me started on that end where he totally decides not to, where it's a slap in the face of Zachary Levi and the Shazam movie that came before him, and how he says, I don't want to go up against him because he's not on my level. I'm like, you literally are the same character. I'm like, Rock, get your ego out of your ass. Yeah, I'm there with you, Mike.
All right, Del, what are you thinking?
Yeah, it's a generic movie, and just like you said, and you said it took a long time, took forever to come out. It seemed like it was taking forever to watch it when I saw this movie. it just drones on and on and on, and it's rinse repeat, it's watch rinse repeat. Black Adam, he comes out, he says something, and then there's a whole bunch of this big battle scene, fight scene, and then Hawkman and Dr. Fate, they get into an argument, and then we do it all over again. It's just, and it's that for however long the movie goes. And on top of that, I thought The Rock, ego aside, whether or not he had an ego, I just thought he was a bad fit for the character. He's a person, back from his wrestling days. He's known as a charming, charismatic figure. And he decided, or whoever's in charge of the movie decided, you know what? All of that stuff that we know you for, don't do any of that. Just stare at the screen stoically, say your lines, and then beat people up. And it just didn't work. It made the movie boring. And I understand he was trying to fit into the character, but at that point, it's like, get somebody else if that's the case. There's a lot of other people that could have done that role. And then his motivations were kind of iffy. And it was 2 hours and 15, 2 hours and a half, and it felt like 6 or 7 hours. It was just thrown on and on. I'll agree.
That long.
It felt like, I mean, literally, I felt like I watched the same 3 scenes over and over and over for the entire movie. And I will agree, Pierce Brosnan was great. He was the best part of the movie by far for me. But that's all I got for that.
All right, Zach, how are you feeling on this one?
Black Adam is a bad movie. I like. I like all the characters. I will say that Rock is miscast as Black Adam. He miscast himself as Black Adam. He really should have been Shazam, honestly. He had the physique. He's goofy when he needs to be. But yeah, I like that he tried to be this serious character. I like Pierce Bronson. I think the casting for all the characters was really good. And I think the worst part of the film was really just the little kid. The Middle Eastern Tom Holland. I did not like him at all. He was really, really annoying throughout the film. The ADR on him was bad. It was just really, really bad when it came to that character. And those are the parts that really dragged for me. Them feel like they saw Spider-Man Homecoming and it was like, we could do that. And it was like a bunch of other stuff. We could do Fast and Furious. We can do this too. And it was like mishposh of other things. But for some reason, I enjoyed myself watching this movie, despite the bad dialogue sometimes, the bad VFX sometimes. It's not a great movie in no way possible. I would never like this is one of the best. There's no performance. You know, like this has the greatest action sequence. This has a great performance. None of that's in this movie. It's a perfectly fine, decent movie. I watched in the theaters. I saw Henry Cavill and I got hype and I had fun, but it's not a good movie.
All right, so let's get into Shazam! Fury of the Gods. I'm gonna hype this movie up. Once
that
you
was
see
really
my
right
ranking,
after.
I think so. Yeah, 2023. Yeah,
feels way bigger.
So I'll get into my my hype for this one because once you see my ranking, you'll know how much I love this movie. I thought this movie's perfection. To me, it's like Shazam 1, but you take it up another level. You add in more fantasy elements. I thought the effects looked really cool with the dragon. I thought the 3 villains were great. Perfect casting for them. I mean, Helen Mirren in there, awesome. Like the dialogue was so funny and entertaining. The family for Shazam, the Shazamly got even more to do in this one. Right, even the parents had some good lines in there and some emotional connection there. So I love the mythological creature battle at the end. So I was entertained completely throughout this movie. Perfect balance of action, fantasy, comedy. To me, I don't see the flaw with this movie. I don't know why people hated on this one. To me, I was mind blown by this one. I went back to the theater twice to see it. I can keep rewatching this one, but you guys let me know. I don't think this one was as high on anybody else's list.
It was fun. I agree with you, Mike. It was fun. The thing that threw me off is you have a kid about ready to age out of the foster system, and you would think his superhero persona would be a little bit more grown up. Zachary Levi in here was more childish than he should have been childlike. The fact that you've been Shazam for how many years now, and you don't know, like, the mystical powers that are granted on you, you don't know anything about what this pencil is writing to you. Like, seriously, like, you couldn't figure that out. You're supposed to have the wisdom of Solomon. You're supposed to have the strength of Hercules. You're supposed to have all this power, and you don't realize what you can do in here. And it just seems like Zachary Levi was like, oh, you know what worked in the first one? Me being goofy like this. Let's do that again. Whereas we lose the whole thing of, yeah, he still has that childlike state, where we see it in all the other family members. They still have that childlike state, but they're not childish. They're not completely 100%, oh, I'm little Darla who's like 8 years old getting my powers for the first time. At 18. So that's just me. That's just me. Beyond that, that's my like one gripe about the movie. I agree with Mike. The visual effects are great. The villains are great. I enjoyed this film.
All right.
I'm just gonna double
I'm
down
in the
on
same.
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead, Zach.
I'll go real quick. I'm just gonna double down on Mike. Everything you said, man. I don't understand why people don't like this film. I watched it in theaters. I was like, oh my God, this is great. And then I went on Twitter and I was like, oh no, I'm wrong again. You know how many times I go see a superhero movie and I'm like, I love this. And then I go on Twitter and I'm like, oh, people are not going to like my review because everyone hates this. It's happened like 7 times since 2018. It's insane. But yeah, I really love this film. I like the fact that Zach Levi, he was goofy, but to me, I think he did play a little bit more mature character in this one because he was trying to be the leader. He was trying to get things together. He was trying to keep the family together. You know, it's all about family. And they weren't listening because they're still in the phase he was in the first
It's
movie.
all about
Family!
Exactly. They were still in the phase he was in the first movie while he's progressing. And that made the character more dynamic. Now he's the leader. He's trying to keep things together. And he's so focused on that and being a superhero, he didn't get to explore the magical part. That's why he doesn't know what the pen is and all the other stuff that he probably should have known because he has the wisdom of Solomon. I really like the villains. I love Rachel Zegler in this. I think she did fantastic. This was my first time seeing her, and I'm a fan. After this and Hunger Games, she's on my radar. Helen Mirren, Lucy Liu. It just was a great cast. They did all a great job. The movie is fun, it's funny, it's very colorful, and the unicorn scene, man. Come on.
So good. Taste the rainbow.
Taste the rainbow. I don't know how much Skittles paid for that advertisement. It was a waste of money because no one went to go see this movie, but it was great. I loved it. Sometimes you need sugary, sweet fun in a superhero film, and then Shazam's the right character to do it.
Yeah, it was fun too. I really enjoyed this movie. Also, my criticism is really just the same as Ben's. You know, the character's responsibilities progress, but the character himself seems to have regressed, and I didn't. That part didn't really work for me. Everything else I was fine with. I'm a big fan of Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu. I really enjoyed seeing them in this movie, and they did well as the villains here. So I had a good time with this movie pretty much all the way through. Just not quite top tier for me, but I really had a good time with it. So why people hated it, I'm not sure.
All right. So moving on to the next one here, a movie that ironically was one of the slowest ones to be released. It kept running away from us. The Flash, right? Took forever to get this one. Oh my gosh. So I don't hate the movie, but I don't love it. I should love it, right? I'm a big Flash fan. But such a misstep here. They had the blueprint. They had the story. Do Flashpoint Paradox. Put it in live action form. You already had an amazing animated movie that did that story perfectly. All you got to do, transfer it to live action. You don't got to do anything different. Because the Flashpoint Paradox story is just one of those iconic DC stories of all time. And we haven't seen it before, so it's not like, oh, now we got to change it up now because we're redoing it. You haven't done it yet. We haven't even ever really got a Flash movie before, right? Standalone live action Flash. This is your chance. Knock it out of the park. Flashpoint Paradox. Let's go. Let's see Reverse Flash. Let's get the Rogues in there. Flash has such great villains. And we got no Flash villains.
Yeah.
We got a Superman villain bringing Zod back. What is happening here? This story made no sense. Like, Supergirl was cool, but I still would have rather had Superman in there. It was just a misstep. I mean, there's some cool things like Michael Keaton. I like seeing him again. He did a good job. I thought Ezra Miller's performance was actually pretty good in here to see how he acted against his other self. I thought that was pretty solid. But other than that, just completely a misstep for a Flash movie. But that's my thoughts. Somebody pick it up. What do you think?
It seems that when it was slow to get released, had something to do with the Flash TV show that was on, because shortly after that TV show was done, this movie released. So it was like, hey, look, we already have this buildup of a great Barry Allen in Grant Gustin in that TV show. And now here's Ezra Miller, who I think what hurt this movie more was all his off-camera antics that he did. I think that's what hurt this movie the most. That, and yes, some of the CGI looked dumb. Yeah, but the way he runs just looked stupid as well. So I'm like, if you're just going nitpick at that, I mean, my wife loves this movie because of Michael Keaton. But like I said, Mike, it made no sense with Supergirl. Yeah, I understand the Flashpoint Paradox thing. I mean, it would have been better if we had more Ben Affleck as if Michael Keaton's Batman was actually reversed with Ben Affleck, so we got more of a darker Ben Affleck in the universe, or even a Michael Keaton who's so jaded he's almost Batman. He's almost like a villain himself. Like instead of bringing in Thomas Wayne and Flashpoint, you were saying, yeah, there's a bunch of missteps in here, but I kind of love his whole thing with his mom in the grocery store. He's trying to stop her from dying, and he has that can in his hand. He moves the cans up top, and he realizes, oh wait, this has to happen. And the fact that that last scene where he has with her, and he's puts the can from the cart back up on the shelf, and he's like, I'm gonna miss you, Mom. And that just touched me. That was probably by far the best part of this entire movie. If they just went with that and did more of Barry growing in that aspect of dealing with his mother, his death, and his father being in prison and trying to get him free, more so than what they did with Zod and everything. Yeah.
See, I didn't even like that part, Ben Buster. I know you loved it, but really, even that to me was a conflict with the story, because the whole theme, we finally got to the big message. Hey, there's certain things you can't change. You gotta let things be. And then he changes that at the end. I'm like, what? We just went through a whole movie saying don't change stuff, and then it's like, oh, we're playing with the rules again, and this isn't making everything spiral out of control. I don't know. Once again, it's like fishing rules in Wonder Woman 84. The time travel rules aren't fully explained here. Just
yeah.
All right.
I agree.
Yeah, the Flashpoint stuff that they used, most of it worked okay. They just stretched the story so thin and padded it with all these other things. Ezra Miller, I thought he was fine in the role. His off-camera antics, that played into the movie, the movie's box office heavily. But as far as what's on the screen, I thought he was fine. I thought he was pretty good. But the way the story is executed, again, it just didn't work, and they added so much stuff to it that it just, it was misstep after misstep after misstep through those middle acts. The first act, was already hampered by the bad CGI. Normally, that's not a deal breaker for me. I mean, I'm used to, we get some shoddy CGI, but it was so in your face right at the beginning of the movie. It was like, oh my, this is what we're in for the whole time. So that was off to off on the wrong foot, so to speak. And then the way time actually works, even when he's not time traveling, time is kind of off, because he leaves the coffee shop and then he's got to run to a whole nother state. and he's got this big battle. Yes, he can get to there fast, but the battle itself still takes a long time. And yet he's back at the coffee shop before, the guys finish making the coffee. And that just kind of was like, okay, now I know that we're not sure how to handle time in this movie because it's all wonky already. And then when we get when him going, back over and over through time, it just didn't feel quite right. And then we get all the, all the nostalgia pieces when we got all the old Supermans and the old Batmans and the old it was cool, but it was unnecessary unless they were going to do something with it. And I will say there are some positives though. Yes, Zod is not a Flash villain, but bringing Michael Shannon back as Zod, I was fine with because he was good again. The Supergirl stuff I liked. I really enjoyed the Supergirl stuff. I know that in the Flashpoint Paradox is Superman, but I was fine with that because her character was cool. But overall, this movie didn't live up to what it should have been. And I was reading some of the comments. Kenny Sparks hit the nail on the head. Flashpoint Paradox probably should be the sequel, not really the first Flash movie. But that's neither here nor there because they decided to go with that, and that's what it is.
All right, Zach, how'd you feel about this one?
I think it's crazy because I say this movie is great. In despite of itself, because it does so many things to try to mess itself up, but it's still great. The negatives are the VFX. If the VFX were done really well, people would have less problems with the film. Outside of all the other stuff, like James Gunn saying this is the greatest superhero movie and building that hype, he was bugging. That made me scared. I was like, bro, is this what you're going to be putting out? Because that's kind of scary. And Ezra Miller's issues and things like that. One, I think Ezra Miller I know I keep saying this, and it's starting to sound like hyperbole with how I say this is the greatest thing. This is the greatest. But I honestly feel like Ezra Miller had one of the better performances as a lead actor in a superhero film. Him evolving from what we saw, the immature character from the appearance he's had before, while having to battle his younger, annoying self. The meta narrative there where fans were annoyed by this character. So for him to realize, yeah, I am annoying. I think that was really genius. There's a lot of genius plot points here. I just think the VFX really messed it up really badly. It just looked bad in a lot of parts. There's a lot of parts that look nice, but there's a lot of parts that just look bad. I think Michael Keaton was fantastic coming back as Batman. I really like Sasha Calle as Supergirl, even though she wasn't fleshed out as much as I would have liked. He does run weird, like Collector Movie Man was saying. But I think the VFX around the running was cool. I just really like the story. I think parts of it was really funny, like when he lost his powers and he started running in the hallway and he ran into the wall. All that stuff was really, really funny. Like Ben said with the mother, that really touched me a lot. I really like the stuff with his mother. I like that a whole lot. I just think that they should have brought Reverse Flash in to be the villain, to really anchor this and get comic book fans excited and stuff like that, and just fix the VFX. If the VFX actually looked like how it was supposed to look in the standard, not like Green Lantern from 2006 or whatever, this movie would have been more accepted. People would have gotten over the Ezra thing if the VFX just looked good.
All right.
So, if nothing else, fix the way the character runs. Why is that so hard?
That's a personal choice by Ezra. It's not going to get fixed.
Well, maybe so, but I'm pretty sure he doesn't run like he's swimming in real life, right? And
his thing was Flash is swimming through the speed. Who told you to make that choice, sir?
Yeah. And at that point, if I'm the director, though, as soon as he starts that, I'm cut. What the hell is that? Just run. We'll handle all the effect stuff. Just run.
They should have did the Flash TV show. Just show his top running and had him on the treadmill. It worked in the Flash TV show. Just do a big budget version of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm sorry.
We're gonna run away from this one. Head over to a Blue Beetle. And
your transitions, man, all night, top tier,
all night.
That's my superpower tonight. Yes, Blue Beetle, a delight of a movie. I'll keep it short and sweet. To me, this movie was all casting, the family dynamics, awesome. George Lopez as the wacky uncle, hilarious, on point. The Nana, right? Oh my gosh, she was so great as well. Yeah, all the cast. The cast was amazing. Uh, the story was a little generic, right? We do get to that third act with once again more CGI, big battle at the end, but I still had a fun time getting there. I liked all the emotions. They had some heart wrenching moments in there with the family. So this is very easily rewatchable for me. I can watch this all the time, have a decent time with this one. And there's so many moments I just crack up in this one. So funny. This movie has such great timing. But yeah, who else loved Blue Beetle?
I love it. It's pretty high up on my list. The family dynamic was great. I love that here we have a younger hero in all this and learning his aspect. The whole story with the scarab and everything. I love that they went with Jaime Reyes instead of Ted Kord in this aspect. Because Ted Kord would, to me, would have just been another version of Bruce Wayne that really wasn't Bruce Wayne on screen. So I'm kind of glad they with Jaime Reyes and still paid on homage to Ted Kord by having his Beetlemobile, his Beetle ship, and even him talking on all the recordings. I enjoy that. And where's Ted? Like, what happened to Ted? Maybe we'll find out in the Booster Gold movie, TV show. Who knows? And how this builds up to something that may build up to something that could have happened, or probably not now. So it felt like a great one-off movie, and I enjoyed it. So,
All right, Del, how'd you feel on this one?
It's just fun. This was this was a nice piece of candy. You pop it in, you eat it, you enjoy it, you have a good time. You don't expect, it's not gonna ruin your diet and it's not gonna save your life, but you have fun with it. And that's where I was with this movie. The comic timing was great, the family was great. It had some nice action scenes to it. It wasn't a world beater, but it was definitely not the dregs of the DCEU either. So it was a good fun movie.
All right, Zach.
I think this is going to be a movie people discover in a few years and go, "Why didn't I go see this? This is really great." And that's how I feel about the movie.
Like Howard the Duck over there. I'm hoping the same thing.
Oh boy, I don't know. You might have lost me there. Howard the Duck is a guilty pleasure. But this is not. I don't feel guilty loving Blue Beetle. Zolo Manuela as Jaime Reyes, perfect casting. He's the fan cast that worked. Where John Krasinski, I don't think is a good Mr. Fantastic. I think he's a great Jaime. Like you said about Blue Beetle and picking Ted Kord. For me, this is personally me. I think when it comes to Mr. Terrific and Blue Beetle, the legacy character is the character now. The black version of Mr. Terrific is the one you go with. You do not go with the white one, and you just do not go with the original Blue Beetle. They're just not as interesting. They're too similar to other characters that are greater, and these two just are more interesting characters. And his family, George Lopez, everybody's like, "Oh my God, George Lopez in a superhero movie? Perfect." Do not judge people until you see the movie. The suits. No one is talking about this suit. It looks as good as Era 1 Iron Man. Like, I love the fact in the third act that it looked like you had it on. Like when the face was broken, you could see him under it. It didn't look like this VFX construct that they started to do with Iron Man that started pissing me off. Yeah, it was just a great movie through and through. I love the Easter eggs. I love the family dynamic. Another forced romance. It seems like they always have to do where it's like, okay, you guys didn't even go on a date, but now you're like in love. Okay. And I'm glad that this is technically the first DC. It's the second to last DCEU movie, but it's kind of technically the first DCU movie since Blue Beetle is moving on. And I like that. I like that this character is moving on because I love everything in its world. And I cried. I cried when the thing that happened to the dad. I cried when he saw him again and he had that talk with him. It just hit me hard, and I think that the movie needed that extra level. And I love the underlying immigrant story that it had there. Wasn't super in your face. Some people didn't even catch it, but I caught it, and I think it was done well.
All right, now diving into our last movie here. Talk about a movie that kind of lost its way for me. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. I despise this movie. This movie was awful to me. Talk about just a massive step down. I love the first Aquaman. This one to me, like when they talk about, okay, superhero movies not being cinema, right? I never got what that meant until I saw this movie. This movie to me feels like action scenes just sewn together where it's like, oh, it's okay, it's a fun ride, right? We're on a roller coaster, tons of action scenes. Okay, it's cool, right? Things are happening, a lot of stuff's happening, right? A lot of visuals are going on, but the heart was not there. The emotion was not there for me, even though they tried to. They tried to include the family with the kid. I wasn't buying it, wasn't working for me. Uh, like it's all a blur, this movie to me. Like there was no strong message by that. I mean, I'm left with the cockroach. He's eating a cheeseburger with a cockroach. That's the big finale to close up the DCEU to say bon voyage to this franchise.
That's not fair.
I
They
can't
didn't
deal
make
with
this movie
I
knowing
can't
that.
deal with this movie. I'm out on this movie. You guys talk good things. I don't got nothing good on this movie. To me,
It
no.
was fun. It was fun. Not good. Not the top of the DCU. It was fun. I mean, you see Jason Momoa on that motorcycle in the sand driving around his son, just like parts of him acting like Jason Momoa took it out for me, like just being a goofball. But I understand what Arthur was doing. He's trying to still juggle the kingdom and being a father. And he's has a baby, so what better thing than act like a kid at times? But I'm sadly sad that William Dafoe died in the first one because his character was sorely missed in this. Like
Agreed.
they tried with Dolph Lundgren's character to be that wise counsel for him, it just didn't work.
Good of actor.
You needed vocal back in this movie, and I think it would have probably been a little bit better because he would have been right there with Queen Atla during the whole thing, and they could have done that. I like the aspect of the two brothers. However, the fact that they realize they need each other in certain ways, that I'm not a great king. You know how to be one. Okay. You may not do stuff by the book. I do, but you get results where Orm doesn't. So they kind of realized there after a while that they were kind of meant for each other. Like they realized that they complement each other. And then Black Manta just being a BA, but being possessed by someone from the past. I'm going, oh, really? You ruined that. You ruined David Kane's. You ruined that character with that. Thank you. I'm done.
That's where I am. I did not enjoy this movie either. The Manta went from being one of the best parts of the first Aquaman to me, to being the worst part of this movie. And yeah, they ruined him. And it always strikes me as crazy, when they use your bad guy, his whole plot is to go get a bigger bad guy. And that just always bothers me. And the way it was executed here didn't work. And Aquaman himself, Jason Momoa, his character, they stripped away a lot of the depth. They tried to artificially put it back in. They gave him the baby, but the baby didn't even need to be in the movie. The way that the story played out, you could have not had this baby and had the same result throughout the whole movie.
It gave Amber Heard something to do.
Yeah. With Amber Heard, it felt like they basically cut around her, or cut as much of her role out of the movie, when they should have either just fired her and went with another actress and recast the role, or just left her role intact and let her do what she does. As it is here, it feels like they just kind of cut out as much as they can of her. So a lot of scenes where she would definitely be interacting with Arthur and the baby, she's just kind of standing around off to the side. Maybe she smiles or looks off to the side like, oh, boys will be boys, and kind of walks out the room. And then in the third act, all of a sudden, she's just super duper important and has this big, moment. It just doesn't feel earned. And then Aquaman himself, as we follow him, yes, his stuff with his brother works really well still in this film, but it's like he speaks in quips for the whole time. It's not the same as it was in the first Aquaman, where yeah, there were some quips and one-liners and things like that. But in this time, this is like 90% of his dialogue. It's just stupid jokes, and they weren't even funny. So yeah, I didn't enjoy this one either.
All right, Zach. I think
I
you
had
like
fun
this
with the
one a
movie.
little bit more, right?
Yeah, I had fun. It's Pirates of the Caribbean with Aquaman, just like the first one, but severely downgraded. Obviously, the first one's superior in every single way to this film, but I didn't hate it. I had a lot of fun watching it. My only complaint was the Mera stuff. I think them chopping up of her stuff really hurt the beginning of the film and the momentum of the beginning. It felt like it was just jumping from points to points. I felt like there's a part where he's talking to the baby, and Mera was probably supposed to walk into the scene and do stuff, and they're like, "Oh, chop." Jump to the next scene, and then she's like sitting there, and she probably was supposed to say something. Then they're like, "Oh, chop." So like at the beginning felt jumpy, but as soon as Orm and Aquaman got together, I was like, "Oh, I love this." This reminds me of what I wish Thor and Loki was in the MCU, where they got to go on adventures together and just bounced off each other a lot. I love their dynamic. I loved the weirdness of Atlantis. I loved all that stuff. And you're right about William Dafoe. I really wish he was here. I think that he's a much better actor than Dundren, or I forgot how to say his name. And he would have been a better wise man. Yeah, wise man for this film. But I had a really, really great fun with when those two characters together with the action scenes. I thought the action scenes were really great, especially the chase in Atlantis. I thought that was phenomenal. But overall, it's like I had low expectations, and it was like, oh, this is a little bit better than what I expected. I had fun. I laughed here. I had some fun with this, but it's nowhere near great. That's kind of how I felt.
All right. So now that we've gotten through all the movies, we're going to go through our individual rankings. I can't wait for everybody to reveal their rankings here. Everybody has their rankings ready?
Yeah.
Del,
Got my
I'm going to have you start, Del.
All right.
And
You want to go from
bottom? Yeah, bottom to the top.
Bottom to the top. All right. 16, Batman versus Superman. 14, First Justice League or Justice League. 13, The Flash. 12, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. 11, Black Adam. 10, OG Suicide Squad. 9, Shazam Fury of the Gods. 8, Blue Beetle. 7, Man of Steel. 6, Shazam. 5, Aquaman. 4, Birds of Prey. 3, Wonder Woman. 2, Zack Snyder's Justice League. And 1, The Suicide Squad.
Nice. So number one favorite, The Suicide Squad. That's awesome. All right. Zach, are you ready?
Oh, yes. Number 16 is Suicide Squad 2016. 15 is Wonder Woman 84. 14 is Justice League. 13 is Black Adam. 12 is Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, as much as I was just talking about that movie. Flash is number 11. Shazam Fury of God is 10. Suicide Squad is 9. Shazam 1 is 8. Blue Beetle 7. Aquaman 6. Birds of Prey is 5. Wonder Woman's 4. And then the Zack Snyder trilogy is 3, 2, 1. And Dawn of Justice, Zack Snyder Justice League, and Man of Steel is number 1.
All right. Ben Buster.
16, Justice League. 15, Black Adam. 14, Flash. 15, 84. 16, 15, 12 would be Suicide Squad. Shazam, Fury of the Gods. Aquaman and Lost Kingdom. Birds of Prey. The Suicide Squad. BVS. Shazam. Blue Beetle. And then my top 4 are Zack Snyder's Justice League, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and Man of Steel.
Oh, there you go. See, 2 Man of Steel in first place twice right there. Nice. All right. So the first 2 bottom, I will say I don't like. These are bad. So we got 16, Birds of Prey. 15, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. You guys heard me ranting on those. The next ones here, I would say, are just missteps. We got 14 with Black Adam. 13, The Flash. We got, let me see, where did I put 12 now? oh, wait, no. Did I put this out of order? You know what? I might have actually done this out of order.
This
oh, no, sorry. Let me redo this. No, that's correct. I'm right. I'm on the right track. Sorry about that. Okay, after the Flash, we got Wonder Woman 84. So that was number 12, right? So number 11, Justice League. Number 10, Batman vs. Superman. Number 9, Wonder Woman. Number 8, Suicide Squad. Number 7, Blue Beetle. Number 6, Zack Snyder's Justice League. Number 5, The Suicide Squad. Number 4, Man of Steel. Number 3, Shazam. Number 2, Aquaman. And number 1, you guys know I love this one, Shazam! Fury of the Gods. I love my Shazam character. You know, I had to.
Wow.
All right, I know, shocking for some people, right?
It's like a lightning bolt to the chest.
All right, so let's this is gonna be fun now though. Getting into the group ranking. So what we did with this one, I looked at all the scores that were sent to me, added them all up, right? Saw all the points. And so we'll go through bottom to the top once again. But before we do that, just real quick, think about what you think are going to be the top 3 movies. Okay. Let's just make a little prediction right here. Del, what do you think are the top 3?
From my math skills, tells me Man of Steel. Wonder Woman, Man of Steel, Wonder Woman, Shazam.
Okay. Zach, what are you feeling?
It's just throwing it out here. I think Man of Steel, The Suicide Squad, and Wonder Woman.
All right. Ben Buster, what are you thinking?
Man of Steel, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman.
Okay. So let's see how it played out.
Aquaman.
So, funny enough, we got a tie right at the beginning here. 15th and 16th place got the same amount of points. And that's going to be 13 points with Wonder Woman 84 and Justice League right there at the bottom.
That's pretty fair.
Yeah, not too surprising. It was kind of surprising they tied, though. That was kind of fun. But yeah, apparently those are the worst of the worst from our group. All right, getting into 14th place now. Black Adam, once again, not too much of a surprise in how we talked.
Mm-hmm.
All right, 13th place, The Flash, 17 points. I know, Zach, you're like, man, no.
I feel like it's too low, but I get it.
I thought this one was going to be lower, but you guys were higher on it. 12th place, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom with 19 points. 11th place, Suicide Squad with 22 points.
That's crazy.
All right. Too high for you, Zach?
Over the Flash? That's crazy.
Wow, if you don't like that one, you're not going to like the next one.
I had it on my personal list that way.
Sorry on this one. 10th place, Batman vs. Superman, 32 points.
It was that big of a jump between 11 and 10.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
it's probably because of me.
32.
Wow.
Sorry,
That's
Zach.
probably half those points on mine.
Yeah, when I saw your ranking score in comparison to everybody else's, I'm like, ooh, not gonna like that one.
I just got it in the top 10. This shit would have been at the bottom if it wasn't for me.
Exactly. Well, I'm shocked on this next one. 9th place, Birds of Prey. It beat Batman v Super. I don't know what happened.
That's crazy.
Right here.
Yeah.
Fine by me. I had BVS last, so fine by me.
Oh, there you go, Del. You brought it way down then.
It's your fault.
Yep. I'll take that.
34 points to Birds of Prey. Wow. I mean, I was kind of happy this was higher than I expected, even though I know 10. I loved it. 8th place, Shazam! Fury of the Gods, 37 points. I'll take that. I'll take top 8. Sure.
Top 10.
7th place, Blue Beetle, 41 points. Really good. Another big jump. All right, 6th place, The Suicide Squad, 45 points. All right. We're in top 5 now. And yeah, hey, you guys were kind of on the money with these next ones. So that's pretty good. So 5th place, Wonder Woman, 49 points. Is that too low for you, Midbuster?
No, my top 3 just got.
Oh yeah, sorry.
If this is March Madness bracket, my top 3 are already ruined.
All right, 4th place, Shazam, 50 points.
Ooh, that was close.
I'm so happy Shazam got that high. I wasn't expecting it. Thank goodness. All right, top three. Actually, top three were not surprising to me at all, especially after we talked here. No surprises. Third place, Aquaman, 53 points. But everybody loved Aquaman, so that's great.
Yeah.
Now it's between the first two. All right, we only got 2 movies left. What are you guys thinking? So it's between Man of Steel and Zack Snyder's. What do you guys think?
Man of Steel 1.
Okay. Ben Buster, what are you thinking is number 1?
Man of Steel.
Okay.
There was at least 2 guys here who had it number 1. So.
So
Yeah, same logic.
leaning that way? Okay.
Yeah, same logic.
All right, you guys are right. But it was very close. So second place, Zack Snyder's Justice League, 54 points. And only by a difference of 1 point. First place, Man of Steel with 55 points. 1 point made all the difference there. But that is the best DCEU movie by our group anyway.
Can't really argue.
They started strong.
They did. It started really strong.
Man,
you
so
can't argue
just,
with those content.
yeah, I mean, real quick though, any shocks, surprises there from anybody, or is everybody pretty happy with this list?
Well, I'm not happy.
The biggest shock to me was a point differential between 32 and 22 points for what was that, 11 and 12, somewhere in there, like that big jump. That was what was shocking to me.
Suicide Squad, then Batman v Superman.
Yeah, it was like that 10-point jump.
Yeah, I had Batman v Superman pretty low too, so I brought it down a little bit. Not last place, but it
that's
was
probably why. That's like where I'm upset. I'm like, how dare you?
It was 7 on my list.
Until you,
10 is fine.
Birds of Prey shocked me though. I don't get it, guys. I'm gonna have to rewatch that one again.
Right where I had it too.
Don't put yourself through that torture. If you didn't like the movie, it's fine. Don't make us try to convince you.
Yeah, it's cool.
All right. Well, there we go. So those were our group rankings. Our last question as we get into kind of closing out, because I don't want to keep everybody here too long. I don't want this to turn into Snyder's Justice League now. We don't need a 4-hour cut of this stream. So what we'll do with this last question is share your thoughts on the last question. We'll go around roundtable style just real quick. And then also let people know where to find you, what you got upcoming on your channel, anything you want to promote. And audience, everybody's channel links are in the description below. So go show them some love, go subscribe, and more importantly, watch the content. They have such great content. So they're going to tell you all about that in a bit. But the question here to start off with is thoughts on what they are now doing with DC. Ben Buster, I know you've been thinking about DC a lot here. What are your thoughts? And just real quick, because I know this can go into a rabbit hole.
Oh, I know. Really quick. I like that they're taking their time with it. It shows you that the head honchos who there want to see this thing successful and taking their time for each movie. Like Superman's just going to start filming this year and it's out next year. And then they said, oh, then we're going to work on the next one. So there's going to be some time in between. I enjoy that. They're taking their time with it. So hopefully the movies are great.
All right, Zach. Oh, wait. First, Ben Buster. Sorry, let people know where they can find you and what you got upcoming.
You guys can find me on all social media at Ben Buster, right here on YouTube at Ben Buster. I just released a video today on a movie review that I did called Cult Killer, starring Alice Eve and Antonio Banderas. So if you haven't checked that one out, check it out on my channel as well. I do a lot of movie reviews and stuff like that. Talk DC stuff like this as well too. So check that out.
Yeah, Ben Buster is like a comic book expert out there for you guys. So if you really want some great comic book knowledge, you got to go to Ben Buster. I mean, he surprises me with like new facts all the time.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
All right, Zach, what are you thinking about DC now?
I'm cautiously optimistic. On one hand, I'm glad that we actually have a DC Studios now. Through all these 16 movies, there was no studio. It was just people just putting out random films. And the fact that it was kind of coherent a little bit is a miracle. So I'm glad there's going to be somebody that has a plan and is going to be developing it and things like that. I think James Gunn is really good at casting. I think he's really, really great at casting people. So I'm excited to see this new Superman and things like that. I'm just worried because I really don't like the way he's starting it out, like the ones that he announced. I feel like if you're gonna do DC, you just need to start with the 7 Justice League members and then you sprinkle out from there. But doing like the Authority and it's not Man Thing, Swamp Thing, and all these obscure characters first. Like Guardians of the Galaxy worked because we started with the 6 and then it was proven like, oh, we love these people. And then you did the weird Guardians of the Galaxy who nobody even knew from the comics. So that's the only thing I'm worried about, that it might fail even if the movie's good, because people are like, what the hell's a Swamp Thing? I'm not going to watch that. So yeah, that's my only thing.
We'll talk later about all that.
All right. So. And then where can people find you, Zach? What do you got upcoming?
Yeah, so my social media is Zach Attack Reviews on everything. I think on like social media is Zach Attack RVS because reviews is apparently too long of a word. I do movie reviews, live reactions of trailers. I do a news show every Tuesday called Zach Attack News Live that you can check out. And if you can't check out the whole 2-hour news show on Wednesday, I chop it up so you can check it on your own time. And I call myself the baby cinephile because I've just gotten to deep into movies really. Like maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. Like I always watch movies, but I'm like deep into it now. So I'm catching up on a bunch of things. So I have a Throwback Thursday segment. And right now I'm going to be reviewing all the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit films on my channel, which I've never seen before. So that's going to be exciting. So good, I'm working my way through two towers right now. I watched an hour and 20 minutes of it and I still have 2 hours and 20 minutes. Woo! Long ass movie.
All right, Del. How are you feeling about DC now?
I'm optimistic. You know, like it seems that they have a plan. One thing I want for them though is to not abandon the standalone movies. You know, like Marvel has pretty much abandoned those. I think those can still work, and they seem to do better with those. They're having trouble when they got to tie everything together. So, you know, just keep working on some standalone movies. Like the Joker movies don't have to tie into Matt Reeves' Batman movies and so on and so forth. So, but I am optimistic about where they're going, though. And
where can people find you?
Well, first, thank you for having me, Mike. Really appreciate it that you thought of me with this illustrious panel. You can find me, Del on Movies, on YouTube, on Instagram, on Letterboxd, on X. I almost said Twitter. Interestingly enough, right after this, well, no, in about 4 minutes, this stream might still be going, but in about 4 minutes, I actually have a video that's going to go public on this very topic that we've been talking about all night, the DCEU. I'm just going to basically deep dive in my own thoughts on my rankings on the DCEU. So if you want more of me talking about these movies, check that video out in a few minutes.
I love it. It's like the behind the scenes. It's like they get even more. That's awesome. Great idea. All right. My thoughts on the DC. I'm not as optimistic as everybody else. I'm pretty worried, actually, and kind of going with Zach's concerns there. What they've announced with the obscure and weird characters, don't like that at all. And I don't know if James Gunn is the right fit for a head of a studio. He's a great director. He's a great creative, right? He can write some amazing stories. He can film amazing stuff. He works great with a team of characters, but I feel like he's kind of leaning too much into that. Whereas Superman Legacy, which is supposed to now start the new DC universe, is going to be a team-up movie. To me, it doesn't feel like a Superman movie. Like I want a standalone Superman proper movie. We haven't even gotten a Superman movie ever. Just the title Superman. We've gotten Superman the movie. We've gotten Man of Steel. We still haven't ever got Superman. So now we're getting Superman Legacy. We got all these side characters. I feel like it's going to turn into a Guardians of the Galaxy scenario, which it can still be a fun, entertaining movie. I just don't know how in the long run it's going to all go together. Me, I like the traditional Marvel system where, okay, we have our main characters, we do our standalone films, then we build up to the team-up film. To me, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I would do that style. This, I feel like, can just go wrong in so many directions. So just a little worried. And so what I've seen so far, I need to hear more news. I need to see who else James Gunn hires, because right now it just seems like he's hiring people he already knows, right? Like he's hired himself to do Superman Legacy, like he's, putting his brother into a lot of the movies and all that stuff. Like I got to see a little bit more from him, So yeah, so I'm very, very cautious right now. So I'm gonna set the bar low, so maybe I get surprised later on. But that's how I'm
Also,
gonna go.
the Flash director's doing the Batman movie.
Oh
I'm a
gosh.
little,
Oh, and then that's another point. Having the separate like standalone stuff. Like trust me, I love the Joker, I love the Batman stuff. But I don't know. To me, now we're having a whole separate Batman movie. Is that going to be weird? Is that going to be confusing? I don't know. To me, it's like overflow, where it's like we need to slow down, which I know the release dates are slowed down, but even slow down on just character build up, the team build up. To me, it's once again be too much, too fast, and I don't know. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. But that's just my quick, cautious thoughts at the moment. But there we go. This was, I must say, a super stream tonight. We had an amazing panel here. It was a lot of fun. Thank you all for being here, sharing your thoughts. I love the rankings. I love the discussion. So yeah, once again, links are in the description below for everybody. Audience out there, you are amazing. Sorry we did not dive too much into the comments there, but we had so many films to get through. We couldn't do that with this kind of show tonight. But I was looking at the comments. You guys were doing awesome, interacting with each other, so that was fun. And then, of course, anybody watching on the replay, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe on the way out, of course. We're making the push to 1,700 subs. We're almost there, so you guys can definitely help me get there. And then if you're watching on the replay, leave in the comments, too. What was your favorite DCEU movies? Leave your rankings. If you can rank all 16, too, put that in the comments. I want to see all the comparisons there. But, yeah, that's it from us tonight, I think. So everybody just, have a good night out there. Make every day a movie day for us.
How many demons he's fought and how many hells. He's never fought us. Not us united.
By retrieving this.
I already got one of those.
Not like this one.
She's a very good secretary.
Hey, where's yours?
I was just trying to get you there. No hard feelings, right? We good.
I love it. I love bringing people together. How are we?